Well, today we have a special guest. We have my guy, Malik. This podcast promised to kick ass, not only because of his Taekwondo skill sets, but also Malik is a nutritionist, right? Also, he is in the military. So we're going to talk about his journey through the military life and, combining civilian life, military life. We have my boy Kevs, as always, here, running and gunning. And we are actually in the spot that we always meet, Made in New Jersey restaurant, 614 Elizabeth Avenue. Guys, check it out. Breakfast is good. I was just telling the guys about how good the soups are here and the lunch specials, only like $11, $12. And it comes with like your rice, it comes with your soup portion, and you get a free beverage. So come check it out, guys. And we're going to start the show with we're gonna go into the Bruce Lee style today, and then we'll talk about nutrition. What do you guys think?
Love it. I love the Taekwondo talks. Yeah, we gotta do it.
I'm ready.
So
time.
You said that you started practicing martial arts, Taekwondo, at a very young age.
Yeah.
How were you inspired to go there?
So I was really inspired from my aunt. So my aunt, she had done Shotokan karate throughout like her teenage years. And she had kind of seen that, I was very energetic as a kid. I liked, doing like recess, it was always fun to me, but I didn't like basketball. And I felt like that was kind of like a mainstream kind of thing. And I was good at it, but I didn't have a passion for it. So my aunt had, it was actually like, right over here on 1115 East Jersey Street. That's the location for the Taekwondo school that I went to, which is actually right down the street from where I lived at. We were just walking down the street and I saw a Taekwondo school and I walked right inside. And I started hearing my first impression when I walked in there, because first impressions matter. Anywhere you go to, first impressions always matter. And the first thing that I had kind of seen and heard was the intensity. So like in martial arts schools, right, they yell, right? I mean, you guys have probably seen it with boxers, We were actually just at the park, you know what I mean? And that's really how we kind of like met, Long story short, I was training over there and, Wendell was like, hey, like, when you're throwing this, like, give like a little exhale, tips and everything, right? So, and that helped, thank you. When I went to the school, I started to hear a lot of yelling in the school, and I started to see like really high kicks, and I was like, that looks really cool. So I was like, I want to do this. So I was like, Auntie, like, I want to do this. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I did karate, Taekwondo, they're very similar, So then from there, that's when I went to a trial class, and then that's when I basically fell in love with it. I was 6 years old when I started, 25 now, and I still do it. So what is that, about like 19 years, roughly, yeah, about like 19 years. It's funny because actually I'm, this upcoming weekend, I'm going to Boston to an MIT competition to kind of cheer on like my Taekwondo people, in their competition coming up. So that's how I kind of got started with doing it and everything.
You're a master in Taekwondo. They say it takes 5 years of dedicated art of craft to become a mastery. So you're like a master in Taekwondo. That's what it's like. You have to master your skills.
Close. Yeah, I say close. I do have my second degree black belt. It took me about 6 years to get my first degree, and then another 5 years to get my second degree.
Nice.
I started to teach when I was a first degree black belt, and I started to fall in love with competing and competition and fighting and traveling when I got my first degree black belt. So that's when I started to, travel all around the country. And then when I started to, build up my career and start to get better, get more wins underneath my belt, that's when I started to get sponsorship to go to different countries and represent the United States internationally. So I mean, master, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but at least for Taekwondo people or people like within the martial arts, they would know that a second degree black belt is not considered a master, but you would need to be a fourth degree black belt for you to be considered a master in and of itself. Right.
So how is it climbing up those rankings of belts in the programs, and then like through each rank? How was it for you to? How did your confidence build in each rank, and then how did you spread that down, or what you learned from the rank before to the people that you're teaching?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So like in at least at my school, different schools kind of have like different belt systems. Same with different martial arts. With Taekwondo, you have white, yellow, green, blue, red. At our school, brown, and then black belt. So about 7 belts. And naturally, students, as you progress through the belt ranks, you go different belt promotions. You're expected to, do different higher level techniques, right? Different breaking techniques, different forms, combinations, and everything. So it gets a little harder as you go through, but naturally as you progress, you should be building on the new things, but also reinforcing the old things that you knew in the past, because, all that stuff comes back, especially when you become an instructor. For me, going from like white belt, yellow belt, green belt, that's when it was kind of more fun. So keep in mind, as a 6-year-old, you're a white belt and you're learning these different techniques, different kicks, you're stretching, right? A lot of energetic kind of movements, right? It's fun, right? So when I got to about like, I want to say green belt, I was maybe like 8, 9 or so. That's when I kind of started to take it more seriously, right? Because each belt has a meaning for it. At least at my school, we always had a belt that had a meaning with it. A white belt was the student is pure without knowledge of Taekwondo, which means that you're not necessarily at fault. So if you do something wrong, it is your higher belts or like your leadership's responsibility to educate you. And then as you progress with the belt ranks, then you're, expected to, you're going to be held accountable for like things like, not tying your belt correctly, bowing to like the master instructor, doing things wrong. You get to around about like blue belt, red belt, right? That's when you're kind of expected to be more of like kind of like a leader, like a junior leader. So black belts can put you in charge to kind of teach. So for me, at least, my perception of Taekwondo had kind of changed when I continued and got to about red belt, which was 2 belts underneath black belt, right? And the meaning of a red belt was it signifies danger. Red belt was always my favorite belt, right? Like, I know I'm a black belt, 2nd degree, but red belt was always my favorite belt. One, because the uniform that you get, right? Like when you're a white belt to like blue belt, it's like a white V-neck collar that you have. When you get to a red belt, it's like a red V-neck collar. And I thought that looked really good, like the uniform and everything. So the meaning of red belt was it signifies danger, but it still lacks knowledge, discipline, and self-control. The meaning of Taekwondo, Te means to kick, Kwan means to punch, and Do means mind control. So it kind of brought things in full circle when I started to look at things like, okay, now I have to look at it from like a mind control or philosophy kind of an outlook with Taekwondo. I love it, but now I need to kind of, take it to heart and have more of a passion for it. So that's when things kind of changed when I got to red belt, and then of course becoming a black belt, which means it's the combination of all color belts and the true beginning of Taekwondo. So now you've gone from white belt to black belt, and now you've been taught all these different, techniques and everything. But now you're truly learning like what this means, the importance of like, throwing a regular basic kick, right? The execution, the snap, the yell, the importance of like, discipline when you're executing certain techniques and everything, training, so it's always a growth. So for that 5 years, it was a really big like growing period for me.
So it's like kind of like the rank of belts. It's like a hierarchy of discipline, which gives you more responsibility, not only to take care, like you said, not only to take care of yourself, but to also help others create themselves within these levels of, discipline.
Exactly.
Did you ever have a Mr. Miyagi moment? You know how Mr. Miyagi is like, wax on, wax out, that you did not know how useful it was going to be? Because for me, Mr. Miyagi, he's teaching is the discipline without telling you for what it's for. Do you ever have that kind of moment in your?
Yes, I did.
He
Yes,
smiled.
I did. Yeah, because I've been doing it for so long, and of course, there's always that moment where okay, this is exactly what it is. I know exactly what it was. I actually had two moments, right? So, my first Mr. Miyagi moment, I got to shout out my master instructor, Master Oscar Alfaro. He's the head instructor of Black Belt America. It's another Taekwondo school that we have over in Elizabeth. He was my what we would call sabomnim. So in Taekwondo, we use a lot of Korean terms, Korean terminology. So he was my sabomnim. That means teaching father, right? So he had been with me for my entirety of doing Taekwondo. So he was my instructor. From yellow belt all the way up to black belt, first degree, black belt, second degree. My Mr. Miyagi moment with him, it was actually, I guess I would say two. It was a very, he was a very important figure for my career. The first one was in a national championship competition that he had brought me out to, and he had told me to do a technique that I didn't quite trust. Right? I mean, as an athlete, you can see it with UFC fighters, they're training and everything. Their coach is like, hey, do this move or whatever, right? And then they go and execute it kind of hesitantly, and then it's no, you should have just committed to it, right? And then when you commit to it, and you can see your coach, that's why you have to have a good trust bond with your coach, that they can see the technique. So Master Alfaro, he had told me to do a technique over at Nationals, and it worked. And to say the least, it worked. It was a final match. There was a gold medal match, and that's when I took a gold medal at national championships when I was 13 over in I think it was San Jose. And that's when I kind of started to appreciate him a little bit more. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I do have to trust him a little bit more. My next Master Miyagi moment with him was when I was going to get my black belt. We had this thing called candidacy, and it was kind of like a training program for students going from red belt to black belt. So different schools don't have the brown belt, but brown belt for our school was kind of like a candidate for a black belt. So that was kind of like the training belt, and through that process, you kind of want to strip red belts from a color belt mindset and kind of put them into a black belt mindset. It's kind of like I was sharing with you, being in the military and going from lower enlisted to now become an NCO, now you kind of have to separate yourself. Exactly. So, it's kind of it's basically the exact same thing. And that was another one of my Master Miyagi moments with him.
So the importance of mentorship and leadership, and actually something that we always talk about with Kevin, and even including yourself that we spoke briefly, it's about the importance of leadership. And at the ethics guild, we always actually talk about leadership, mentorship, right? Without the right guidance, because for example, your mentor, what he notices that you don't trust something, right?
Yeah.
Is it because in your thought process, was it because you didn't feel confident about the movement itself, that you were a master of that technique, or was it because you couldn't see it applicable?
I'd say it's kind of both.
Okay.
Because as the athlete, and I've been competing for years. When you're fighting or actually competing, you don't see what your coach sees. So, and your coach trains you. So he knows what you're capable of doing, right? So if he says throw this technique, he sees it because he's reading not just you, but he's also reading your opponent. Mm-hmm. Right? So he's seeing, what you're doing, and he's seeing what he's doing, and he's looking for moments and opportunities for you to exploit that weakness or exploit that advantage that you have over him. So me kind of, hearing that and not really trusting it, it was kind of a match of like, I don't see it, and just with nerves and adrenaline, it was kind of, I'm not sure if I can do it. So it was kind of a pair between that. It's kind of hard to say I didn't trust him, right? Because I wound up doing it and it wound up working, right? But in that heat of the moment, it's kind of like that, the nerves, kind of like that's the only thing kind of hindering me from executing.
That means you had a strong bond with your mentor, because to not see the end, right? Because it's kind of like opaque, right? But to listen, right, he's actually yelling, right, shouting what you should do, and you hear that, and it computes to you to trust the instinct of your leader to say, hey, this is your best option, and to trust. That's actually that talks about the relationship, right? And by the way, not to go somewhere else, we don't have the empanadas today. We actually ate them all before it did not make it to the table. Every time it makes it to the table, this time it didn't. But talk about relationship. I don't know if you want to ask something in terms of that relationship with his mentor and the connection they had to, like, him listening, automatically trusting something he didn't trust as much.
Yeah.
Kind of like you have faith in your mentor and your leader to be your eye that you couldn't see, that perspective, that experience, that that confidence in the training, all that, right? That leader, I think, gives that. I believe that leader gives that opportunity for you to see past the sphere of perspective. So you have to expand that sphere of perspective to show that, like, hey, do this technique. I see, like, his arms going up too much. If you just catch him right below, then you'll be good. So that mentor will, and that leader, that mentor and leader, that they would expose those opportunities for you to then basically win, right? Because the goal is to win, and they want you to win, and they took you underneath their wing as well because they saw something in you that they could bring forth. Basically put more potential to it, right? Because if you went to the potential, like, you could expand potential. So you're, like, expanding that potential outwards is for you and for the mentor. It's for both. It shows like hey, that, like, these are things that can be worked on, and like you're one of the students that the mentor did it to, so then they could do it to the next students as well because they saw that it worked, right?
Right.
So it's gonna keep going upwards. So you kind of give, like, that mentor even like a stronger advantage for those students that are coming in next, right? Definitely. Like that's what it's all like. It's that all embracing, like, circle that goes back, and then you're gonna do the same thing when you're gonna mentor somebody. You're gonna recognize those techniques and the things that you weren't listening to. For example, like, not having that faith in that leader in the beginning, right? Like it's it's hesitant because it's like, do I have that power to throw that kick in that certain sense?
Right.
Did I practice enough of it? Your leader knew you did it. Your leader knows you did it good enough, and you even go harder in it.
Absolutely right.
It comes all back together. Like, you're like a. I remember during another conversation we were talking about masters climbing upwards.
Oh yeah.
Student and master. When you climb upwards, you're climbing upwards with your mentor now, and then you guys lead the whole studio next. You're like, even that ranking of that black belt, from that white belt to the red to the brown to the black.
Yeah.
Like, even in that ranking, it's kind of like you had to become a mentor to the ones below before you can become into the black belt or the brown belt, because you need to learn how to teach. And then from that teaching, your philosophies get better, and when you teach, you learn more too. You understand the concepts more because you're putting them out a little bit more. And then it's like a expansion, development of your mind and your body, and with the, like, the social development as well, like, around with them. Not only for yourself, but now you recognize yourself is included with others.
You know, interesting your point, because when you were talking, it brought in definitely a question in me, right? Two questions, as a matter of fact. Actually, when you mentor somebody, your students, when they start growing, they start seeing your vulnerabilities. Because teaching is about exposing. It's exposure. And when you expose not only the good, but you expose the bad. What are things that you've seen from your mentor that you know that's a vulnerability, and how did your mentor build that trust for him to become vulnerable to you, to teach you everything he knows?
That's a really loaded question, and I like that. No, I like that. I like that because it brings me to kind of like personal moments, that like we've had like just back and forth, like me and my master instructor. And yeah, no, you guys are absolutely right. I absolutely loved, what you were saying, Kevin. It's spot on with that. And now you're bringing me even deeper. You guys ask like really good questions. You guys are pretty good.
This guy's smart.
I like this. Oh man, you guys the feds? What's going on? What are you guys up to? What do you guys got?
FBI.
Excuse me, sir.
Got the mics on already.
Yeah, shout out to
SWAT team. Come
we got him. But yeah. So to answer that though, I would say kind of like to put it simply, we've had both in the Taekwondo school. It's called a dojang, right? A dojang. In the dojang moments where I've seen him kind of show me something, and then I seen like where it correlated or like where it played into effect at another point in time. And I've had conversations with him on like a personal level, where he's kind of shared like certain kind of concerns or whatever. And then like later on, I can reflect back on like something that he's shown me here or something that he shared with me here. And then I would, go to him and then kind of talk about it. And then we were kind of like able to get a better kind of connection between the two of us. And then I guess in him doing that and me like, coming up to him and like approaching him, talking about something, right? Or even like, him bringing me aside and like, hey, like I want to talk to you about something. Us having like that moment of just kind of, I guess, like vulnerability. And, me being honest, like, hey, Master Farrell, like, I didn't really like this, and then he'd be like, okay, like, what was it about it or whatever? Like, kind of felt like it was a little rough or like, kind of hurt or like, you know what I mean? And him kind of responding back to it and like, kind of giving me kind of like a little bit more like enlightenment as to like why. And then he was like, yeah, like, I'm showing you this because like, I want you to be better. As your sublimum, I want you to be better. I want you to grow, and it's going to make you better. Right. And I just had to like, be receptive to it. That's another thing too. You have to be receptive to constructive criticism, right? Especially like, in the dojang, right? Like this isn't my school, but he's training me to be an instructor to lead the school, which I eventually did. He would need me like, come over and like teach the class. And just through those like moments of like, us getting to better understand each other, it fostered a atmosphere of trust that we had with each other. And of course that, came into like competition, so I felt even better. So that relationship just kind of grew and like, got better over time. And yeah.
It's like honesty and humility conjoined together, like functional growth.
I like that.
Yeah. That's spot on, as a matter of fact. And one thing that, for example, no matter how much training you get, I'm a fellow veteran myself, and when you fight, no matter, even if you know more or you know a lot, there's always fear, right? And the control of fear, right? Because there's always a mystery of what your opponent can showcase, right? And that's the anxiety question, right? What is there that I can't see? And that brings a little bit of fear. How did your mentor deal with fear, and was he able to teach you something, and how did you teach yourself go through, like, for example, in a competition, how many times you get beat up to learn a technique very well, right? And it's almost that exposure of showing how vulnerable you can be. How does that, like, for example, it transform into strength with practice? How did you deal with those first stages of getting constantly beat up, right? And overcoming that thought that, like, am I ever gonna be that good?
Yeah, that's it sucks.
How often do you get beat up? Like,
I
when you
mean,
first started?
honestly, when I first started, I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I first started, I felt like I had an advantage because I was like a little bit more athletic.
Okay.
So that athleticism helped me to a certain point, and that certain point was as a red belt. When I became a black belt, that's when things kind of changed because now I needed to actually train, like, my muscle endurance. I need to control my breathing. I need to do even more training, elevation training with not a gas mask on, an elevation training mask, right? Like, like 9,000, 12,000 elevation to prepare for like going to Colorado for competition, for team trials, and yeah, like that training, it was necessary. And that's where I kind of started to feel a little beat up because it's different, As a red belt, I was like 13, I get away with athleticism. I get away with winning because I was athletic, right? I had some fight in me, but it sucked to do what was necessary to get me to a better level, which was becoming a black belt and competing with other black belts on that level. So, I mean, it sucked. We did all kind of different training. I still remember, when I got with my sports coach, we would do hard rounds, like, it'd be like one person in the middle, unorthodox training, you know what I mean? Unorthodox, like it'd be like one person in the middle, you'd have like 3 chest guards on and like, 4 people around you, like bigger than you, heavier than you, like way more experience, beating you up, and it sucked, but and an endurance training, waking up in the morning on a Sunday at like 7 o'clock in the morning and go to the mountain and go and do like 2.5-mile run around the mountain twice and then like endurance drills. So, I mean, that training sucked, but it was necessary. So I always bring it back to that, it sucked, but it was necessary in order to go and compete and win. Not just go to compete, because those kids are probably doing something like that, right? But you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is going to change your mindset. So when you go into the fight, you're not going to receive that adrenaline dump, right? Nerves, you can't get away from it. You know what I mean? Like, I think Mike Tyson said, like, being nervous, like, it was my friend. He was like, I was afraid to go and fight. But, like, it's how you channel that kind of anxiety, like that energy and the adrenaline, how you channel that into the fight. And then that's when you pair that with, like, your flow state, like we were talking about. And then that's when you can just you can enjoy it. Right? It's not so much as fun, but it's like you can enjoy your martial art. You can see what he's doing. You're prepared for it. Your adrenaline isn't going to like, make you crash and everything. So all that stuff comes full circle. That's the best way that I can, answer that right there.
And then can I circle back to the unorthodox
Yeah,
training?
yeah.
So with that unorthodox training, it kind of reminds me like with those being in the center, we're having like a group around you, kind of like beating on you, right? Like
Yeah.
That it's unorthodox a little bit. It's not from like a parent wouldn't want to send their kids that, but
Yeah.
Obsession.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, how was class? I got beat up. I was in the
like
middle.
10 guys, by the way.
Yeah, but that's the world.
No water.
No water.
Yeah, no water. That's hilarious.
I'm thirsty.
Gator.
But they survive through it.
Nutrition, right? Nutrition. Yeah.
But that unorthodox training kind of prepares you for that real world. Like it's not in the real world. You're gonna get if you're gonna get jumped, it's gonna be a situation like that. It's kind of preparing you for that situation in a sense, and how to get out. And not only how to get out of it, but to survive it, right? Like you have to go home at the end of the night. Like even if you get jumped, you still have to find your way back, right? So you like with that unorthodox training, it prepares you for the realness of the world, and without that, it's going to be institutionalized for the competitions, and you're kind of like, do you want just to be institutionalized for the competition, or do you want that real, like that backup real world experience to
Mhm.
protect you when you're out there in the street. And because they're not going to play rules when
Yeah.
you're in the street.
Of course.
In the competitions, there's certain rules, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You got to play by certain rules. But out here,
There's no referee.
there's
Yeah.
no referee. No one's going to
Absolutely.
fight. You could be bleeding and like crazy. You could be already knocked out, right? And then they'll keep going. But then if you know how to get yourself up, control that adrenaline, you have that balance inside of that, you'll walk away from the situation. You're like you, even with the fight, even if you win or lose, you'll walk away from the situation. Rather, if you weren't prepared, you don't even know if you're gonna walk away. Like so,
If you had to measure from 1 to 10, because like I always say this, right? Everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right?
Yeah.
From 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how hard was it to get to the degree of black belt that you are today? And what is the one regret that you wish you can take back in that whole practice of your career practicing Taekwondo?
Degree of difficulty to get to, like, to get my second degree black belt.
Hmm. From 1 to 10, that's the scale.
I'd say it's probably a good, like, 8, 9.
So it's high up there.
It's definitely, yeah.
Remember, we were talking a little bit about discipline, right? And you're passing one generation. There's a younger generation coming behind you. How are they taking discipline when they're first learning Taekwondo? What are the difference you see? And also, I'm pretty sure your mentors probably spoke about their discipline at that time with their mentors. Can you like can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the best thing that I can say is I can compare one school to another school, right? So in one part, it's your staff, meaning if you're a good instructor and if you're able to create or produce other good instructors, right? That's that's literally like as far as like the pinnacle of like being a successful master instructor, that's really where it boils down to. Can you create more of you? Can you replicate more of you and then encourage them to become better than you? That's literally the pinnacle. It's not about how big your business is, how many schools you have, how many students, or how many different programs, Black Belt Club, weapons, demonstration, forms fighting. Those are good things for the school to grow in itself. But you need to have the ability to teach and train others, like the next group of black belts, to become also instructors. If you can keep that, which my master instructor has, we actually just had our first like Shim's Martial Arts Academy like dinner. We had like 13 people in attendance, all from different kind of backgrounds, but it was beautiful to see that after like, I want to say about like 10 years or so, right? Like, everybody like, was able to come back and then like, be back together. So it's beautiful to see that. And all of us are like, black belts. And then also the quality of the teaching in itself, right? So when I go to different martial arts schools, right, like you can see the effectiveness of the instructor based off of the students. So I wouldn't go to an instructor, right, like to go to his school and be like, are you a good instructor? No. Or like, is this a good school? No. You would look at the students. You would look at, are they following like the good disciplines and customs of a dojo, right, of a Taekwondo school, right? Because those things are across the board. Every martial arts school should have that. You see like a higher belt or like an instructor, you bow to them, right? Or like, you're coming inside the dojo and step on the mats, right? No shoes on the mats or whatever. You bow to the flag when you come in. You bow to the flag when you exit, all right? You speak when you're spoken to, right? You're very respectful. You're quiet when he's talking, right? Customs and things like that of that nature. And as far as just kind of seeing, over my years, I can say that it's been really good, like quality wise, like the teaching. And I noticed that there's a difference in the amount of quality you can put into a class based off how many students you have in that class. So I've been with a class of like 2 students, like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, right? And then a class of like 50 students, right? A little bit older. So the way that you teach them is going to kind of fluctuate and kind of vary. You know, you have to, project your voice a little bit more, right? You have to take them through different exercises a little bit better, right? You have to consider the higher belts and like the lower belts, like what's their level of technique that they can execute or perform. What's going to be the best method of training to get everybody fully engaged according to their belt level. There's generalized classes, there's also specific classes. So that can kind of vary, and if you're a good, effective instructor, you're able to captivate everybody's attention, all the students and the parents as well, right? Because the parents, they're the ones paying for these kids coming, right? It's a business as well, right? So the parents want to feel like their kid is getting attention, right, from the instructor to make them better. So those kind of elements are very important. And, that can kind of vary, based on how many, students you have in the class and how effective your instructor is.
That's interesting because, like, me and Kevin, we go a long way, and one of the things we always spoke about the importance of having a mentorship program. And it seems like the practice of martial arts like you said, the value is not the business. The value is how good is your mentorship program? Right? How many mentors are you creating for the next generation to create the very best, and the very best creates the very best, and there's a substantial evolution of keeping this practice alive, because that's how you keep a culture alive, right? You create better and better versions of yourself. It was like Agent Smith, man. No wonder Neil hated Agent Smith, man. He hated his gut.
I like it.
But like you said, right? There's a difference between the importance of how many people are you mentoring also dictates the quality.
Yeah.
Because if you're one instructor, you have 25 students, you can multiply yourself into 25 versions of yourself to customize that teaching to that particular person that is athletic, unathletic, orthodox, unorthodox, right?
And this one listens, this one doesn't listen, now you have to discipline him, but this one's disciplined and he wants to.
And this is where I want to go with this. It seems like martial arts had figured out a great mechanism of education, right? Of something so complex, right? But then I compare this to the work, where there's a belief system that I'm going to give you a book. How successful would it be if somebody gave you a book and said, read this, and now you know and you've been trained, and you've been instructed only one? Because this is what the workplaces do. They create an SOP, a standard operation procedure book. They go and say, well, I'm going to walk you through the ropes. I'm going to read this, by the way, and now you're trained. How would that work in Taekwondo? You'll get your ass kicked, right?
Yeah, no, you can't read a book on something and expect to be no. I didn't get my black belt because of the articles and like the culture that I had to read. Is because of the exposure and just those feats and hurdles that you have to overcome. Different feats and hurdles, right? Things in like spirituality, like how do you speak to students, right? Physicality, your physical discipline, right? Your mentality, how are you talking to them? You know what I mean? Like different kinds of things, how you handle stress. Those are the things that mold you. You can't read and expect to be molded.
The theory and the practice, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Kevin. I know Kevin is exploding. Was like, I would question. So I'll let you be. I'm sorry.
It's good, brother.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Do your thing, Kevin.
I love the reading part and the practice. Like, sometimes I think about that with college students. Like sometimes in college, it's just gonna provide you with that book, the philosophies, the theories, all that, right? But then they won't provide that space where you can actually practice the theory that certain philosophy. They'll teach you it, right? They'll teach you the book knowledge of it, but the experience of it is kind of hard about it. That's one reason why I chose photography in college, was because I knew it wouldn't just be off the book. You kind of have to be in the field and actually pick up a camera and shoot it to learn it. Because then you wouldn't learn about the camera unless, like, you could learn about the camera on a book, but then it's like, it's a technical technical knowledge, but like technicals don't go everywhere. Like I break the technicals all the time to create something creative.
That's true. That's true. And also to kind of add to what Wendell was saying, you know, the education in the military, there's what they call AIT, right? That's just kind of like, okay, this is how you should be doing things, right? This is the way that things work. Then you get over to like your duty station or wherever it is, and like you were saying, the SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. Those things are like totally different, right?
Don't match. And,
You know?
and it's funny that you guys bring this because one thing I do love, and this is where my mind goes like, you know, especially in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
It's like most places they will ask you to be creative, but they give you a wall of guidelines to not be creative, right? So it's almost like saying do but don't, right? And it segregates you. And this is why I encourage people to, if you're very skillful at something, it's better for you to venture on your own and create your own business, because right in there, your only limitation is not doing what you believe you can. But eventually, like you said, you're going to experiment and get better at the craft. For example, when you selected a career that it needs creativity. You as well, you practice a discipline, but it requires, the next level is, where does the creativity to perfect the technique comes from, right? And to me, that's fascinating because, like, for example, the brain it predicts the future, right? It always tells you a step ahead of like predicting what it can come, right? And for example, how an SOP is great, but it shouldn't hinder you to not think beyond that SOP. And I know Kev's like, for example, you've been somebody that have been through the ropes about like finding better procedures, but then here comes the guideline that stops you from being more efficient.
Yeah, like those SOPs, I consider them like a map, right? Like it's like a map. If you follow the map is there, but sometimes when you're on the journey of the trail, like the map is not going to be totally accurate. Sometimes you got to trail off that map to rediscover the trail where you're headed to, or even to find that shortcut that says, you know what, I'm not going to go around this whole mountain. I'm going to go up and through, right? So like the SOP is that map. They just want you to follow the map, stick on that trail, don't go off it, don't try to find don't pioneer basically. Like don't be a pioneer or certain thing. So that's what that SOP is there for. Is that it's
I like that. I like that mountain example.
Yeah,
You know why? Because because the SOP is created for you to go on this route, and there's a mountain there. But what happens if you're a great mountain climber? Now you're taking away that number one ability you have to create that shortcut, right? So that's where I think like SOPs has to be the map, but depending on your talent, right? Depending on what you're good at. Because you can't segregate your abilities just because you don't have like it's crazy, right? It's like, why are you making me live when I can run?
Right? Like, I think it's for like different masks for different people, right? You gotta adjust the talents that are there. Like analyze who's gonna like. Some people are meant to follow the rules, right? Some people aren't gonna go off certain stuff. They like sticking to the operation. Yeah, they like to do out of some people. Not rebellious, right? They're not rebellious if they're not going off the boat. They're discovering, right? They want to just they play. They're playing around with the rules that are there and discovering new methods, right? And ultimately, that's what creativity is, right? You take the foundation of certain stuff like techniques in like Taekwondo, and you add one technique to another technique, right? And you create a whole new system in there. Now you have a whole new martial arts in there.
True.
So, like some people are meant to make those different techniques, right? Discover those. So you gotta just see who the talent is.
That's interesting because the most vulnerable fighters are the predictable ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, if for a good fighter, I guess somebody that is trained, they kind of see the flow of the movement, right? Because we humans, we're people of habit, and we always fall into our habits at some point, right? And if a fighter starts breaking down, like, oh, when he does this, the next move is this, it makes it predictable. This is why I think, like, for example, to be disciplined in your area, in Taekwondo, is becoming that unpredictable source. And I think it was very smart of you observing the fights, because you saw how predictable that person could be depending on where he stands, how he hit. How did that help you? Like, you know, how would you observe somebody being predictable?
So I like to study opponents, but also I just love Taekwondo in itself. I like to just watch footage of how different fighters fight, right? And then I like to look at what's their track record. Are they consistently winning, right? Is their strategy working? And then where I kind of, bring it back to myself, it comes into our kind of training, right? So there's like a by the book, which I feel like it's a good baseline.
A good map.
Yeah.
The SOP.
If we use it, like, right, like, because I think to a certain extent it is important for like kind of like formality, kind of like an intro. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, this is like how the map works, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you start to hone your skills and put it in conjunction with that map, now you're adding a whole nother element. And that's what makes you diverse. That's what makes you smarter. And then when you have that coach, right, and you guys have like, that connection, and he's like, okay, now throw like a triple kick or whatever, right? Like, so I said triple kick because and it's funny because I had a friend, he told me that when you go over there to like Asia, right, they're very smart, strategic, right? Like I've been to China, I got to train with their national team, which had like 66 athletes on it, right? And we sent a team of like 13 U.S. athletes, so it's kind of like, all right, so
underdog.
Yeah, take on the army, guys. Come on, let's do it. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. It was very, very beneficial for me. But one thing I started to notice was that, you know what, I can't expect to go brawn for brawn. I need to bring my brain into this. So then I was like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna set up this technique, and I'm gonna allow him to make mistakes, right? And that's what I did. And I, obviously I can't hear what the coach is saying, just do her language. And I'm like, okay, boom, I'm connecting with that. I'm patient, I'm waiting, I'm feigning, I'm conserving my energy. I'm kind of slowing down the fight to where now I'm kind of, fighting smart. So fighting with, more mental than physical. And then that's, where my coach would be like, hey, throw this double kick, right? He's getting anxious. He's seeing that you're tagging him here. Once he throws that, that's what we're waiting for. Once he throws that, because he's going to be nervous, he's going to be looking to get something, he's like, just slide it up straight to the face. He's like, but pay attention, be patient, wait for it, look for it, right? Keep tagging them, right? And then change it up. And then they're not ready for it. So.
I think sometimes that goes off like that technique to get them tired, right? Like sometimes the SOP that map is so efficient until it gets tired. They gotta break it, right? They gotta break that SOP.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like this. I've been listening to a lot of Alex Barmosi. He's like the gym business guy, and he talks about cranking it up. So in his marketing state, he says when something's working, crank it, dial it all the way up until it breaks, right? And then that's when something breaks, that's when you go back into it and you say, what broke? Where can I fix it? And then if it's working again, crank that shit up all the way until it breaks again.
I like that. Yeah,
It's like a remold.
Yeah.
You want to reinvent yourself, and I think that's probably the hardest part when we're losing a fight. Is to at what point you realize that you're going into the definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing expecting different results, right? And I think that's hard because think about it. You're getting hurt. Second, because you're getting hurt, your thought process, I need to defend myself.
Yeah.
Because I can't take more hits because at some point I'm going to lose more than what I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
But here's where you have to be courageous.
And the time is ticking down too.
Exactly. Then you're getting more tired, right? Because you're getting more hit. So, but then the courageousness of saying, if I win, what do I lose? Right? And then if you ask the reverse question, if I lose, what do I win? What is it that you need to bet if you're down? So you're already losing. Think about that.
Yeah.
So you have nothing else to lose.
You're
So-
making rock bottom.
Like you said, if you crank it up, regardless, because now you're betting everything. That's like all your poker chips. I'm all in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because guess what? I already know I don't have the cards. What I need to do is scare you so you can think I have a good hand of cards in my hand and crank it up, right? And I like what both of you guys said. It's very interesting because if you're losing, you have nothing else to do. Right? Might as well give it a try. And if you lose, trying is better than losing, not being brave enough to showcase the very best version of you. And if that very best version of you is not better than the version of that person, you know that you got to practice. There's something you didn't practice enough to get to that level.
And even when you lose too, it's like you didn't really lose, right? Like you learned something that was the opponent saw a flaw in me and exposed that flaw in me. Yeah, it's like, what can I prepare myself for the next time? Where was that flaw? Why did I get so tired so fast?
Right.
Even when I did put it all in it, even when you did put it all in, and let's say you lost even after that, okay, I put it all in. Where do I need to get better? Right? Like some people will take their loss. Like some people will be so down in their losses that they'll never get back up. Sometimes you gotta get back. Like there's no other way about it. Like failures bound to come. And if you're not failing once in a while, then like you're not in the right place. Then you're already kind of like you're already at the top of that mountain. You got to start climbing different mountains, and that comes down to like humility in a sense too. Like you could be like pride will come in with a lot of wins to a certain like weight class, for example. Like certain weight classes in the UFC, they'll stay in their weight class to become the king of that weight class.
Yeah.
Now instead of just holding that king title, sometimes they'll go to a different weight class, even one that's even heavier weighter, just to give themselves a little challenge, give themselves a little humility, to push themselves a little bit even further. Right. I think that's where humility comes in for those winners as well as those, because the winner has to become humble to know that they're not the best. Yeah, right? There's still always somebody better.
It's kind of like like you're not going to win every competition. But every competition that you don't win, you do win because you learn how to get better.
Yes.
Right? Like, for example, my double kicks, they didn't work when I was first using it. Over the years, double kick works. Now, it's becoming my kind of signature move, yeah. And then kind of like, from like that, I can like, kind of bring it to the head, right? Like if it was like a double kick to the body, now it's like, okay, that's scoring. Now my coach is like, now do the same thing, but to the head. Set it up to the head. So now it's, over that time where I thought I was like losing. I wasn't really losing, right? It was a learning experience. And now I'm learning to make that better because it was there. My coach would always say it like this. It was there, right? Whether it was the technique was there, whether it was, the fight was there, right? Like the win was there, right? It was there. And so he's like, it was evident. You just need to tweak a couple of things, then we can capture it, claim it, right? It's not always going to be your day. You know what I mean? Like you go to a competition, you give everything you have into it, right? And it might not go your way.
There's always a dog's day, as they say,
Always a
right?
dog's day.
And I want to, before we jump into military career, right? Definitely want to bring two people that were very influential in the fighting industry, right? For example, we could talk a little bit about Muhammad Ali's evolution, going from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
And then
I think somebody that I believe we need to give a little bit more credit is Bruce Lee's combination of not having a style.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it's very unique because one thing that I see a relationship between Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali is that they understood that
they had to have different variables in their fighting style, right? If you look at Cassius,
like if you see his youth videos, this guy can't be touched. Literally, he boxed. He boxed. He didn't fight. He boxed. The man boxed. He wasn't getting hit much, but he was smacking the living hell out of you.
He was beautiful.
Oh my God! He was an art form. I'll be honest with you. I don't only like him for his boxing ability, but what he represented, because he's somebody that stood up for his convictions.
Oh yeah.
But what I admire a lot of it, when he lost that physical attribute, when he came back to fight Frazier and all these different opponents that were already a little bit much bigger than him, right? What was fascinating is to see his evolution, because he knew he did no longer have the speed in his feet. He still had it in his hands, but then he reinvented his style. And then if you listen to Bruce Lee's philosophy, he talks about be like water, right? Just be flexible, acquire all the knowledge, and whenever it's useful, use it. Right? What are your takes about these two individuals, Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali?
Give it to Kevin first. You got it.
I love Bruce Lee with that warrior quote because I think that's what started my journey to flow a little bit, because he taught me how to be like I used to love listening to Bruce Lee. Like he was my favorite.
He's the man, though.
Yeah, right. He was the best. And I love watching his YouTube videos and like the fighting, the ping pong one.
Yeah.
That was badass.
I loved it. I was trying to do. I have lunch. Like, sorry, little side tangent. But I was like, yo, like, how does he do that? And I was just like, oh, he's really like. You just have to.
He was in tune, man. That guy was in tune. Like.
Such an icon, man.
Yeah,
Such a natural. He was so natural with it too. Like he was in the divine conscious. I'm gonna like divine conscious, that flow state of just being natural within the world. Like having that, like knowing, like he was just energy with energy. Like.
But he was very controversial about his philosophy. Like at the time, the martial art community thought of him as a very controversial figure because they couldn't understand that exactly. He, to me, and this happens a lot, people that are way ahead of their time are not understood in their time. And I think that happened to Ali when he decided not to go to Vietnam, right? Because of that, they couldn't be understood. And then what happened was, unfortunately, people condemned them for their wisdom, right, and their knowledge that were ahead of time. But man, I'm telling you, like Bruce Lee was a specimen.
Did he bring the martial arts to the West? Like,
he was influential. I think
He was influential, but I believe the martial art that he had created was Jeet Kune Do, and that was kind of something that became a little bit more modernized over here. Yeah.
Because he started with Wing Chun.
Wing Chun.
Yeah, Wing Chun.
Yeah.
Wing Chun.
And like Donnie Lee style, and
And it's funny because, like for example, my favorite movie from him has to be Chinese Connection. That to me, like it signifies, and especially the instrumentals at the end of that movie. To me, it's like it's a piece of art, and I think it's like something like every time I think about that, it's like the perfect ending scene with the music. So this guy was definitely not only in martial arts, but also he was very artistic, right?
he added the art and science and the science and art within his martial.
I like that. Yeah.
He sold it well.
He did. He wasn't a showman though. Like he just had something to show. Like it wasn't like he was doing it for performance. But he was more like he's just doing it at a skill, right? That's like the whole difference. Like in like the showman will do it just for the performance of the people versus like they'll get better for the people versus like the skillful one will do it for the betterment of like himself, but for it's also for the people, but like really like it's that inward alchemy going outwards.
It's like to share his it's kind of like to share his craft with the world, right? If you think about it, you know, if you're inside of a martial arts school, that's where you practice. Because it actually used to be the kind of like the normalized thing. The only time you can do martial arts is inside the dojo, is inside of the gym, right? It was supposed to be like, you know, based off of like, you know, being a humble sport, humble martial art, right? You practice this stuff here, right? Even before that, it was you couldn't even walk outside with a uniform.
Oh, really?
You could, you couldn't, you weren't supposed to, because it was like, it wasn't being modest. Like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, like I'm gonna walk around and have my uniform on and my belt or whatever. You know, it's kind of looked at as like, okay, an ego kind of a thing, right? And also to a certain extent to protect the martial arts in themselves, right? You don't want to make yourself a target vector for people that want to challenge you, right? So there's also that element as well. But like, yeah, no, you weren't supposed to, you know, go out like with your uniform or whatever, practice like in public or whatever. Nowadays you can see it, you know, anywhere. Which actually, you know, I've actually, you know, done my martial arts at the parks because at first I never really used to feel like it was a good thing to feel like a showboat or to feel like I'm just doing this so that people can look at it. But when I kind of spoke to my master instructor about it later, I was like, hey, I kind of feel this way about it. You know, I don't really feel comfortable. I never used to do it before. It wasn't until like, you know, a couple of years before. But when I started to go, you know, I started to have different conversations. I was like, I feel conflicted with practicing outside. And I was like, a part of me feels like, you know, one, I didn't have a place to go to. Like, it'd be like a holiday or whatever, right? Like the school is closed, right? Like, or whatever, something like that. And I just be like, I can't practice like at home, so where would I can only practice there? And then the other part, you know, I was just kind of like, I don't feel comfortable doing it outside. I don't want to feel like people are looking at me like, okay, he's trying to show off, he's trying to brag or boast. And then I started to, you know, have different conversations. He was like, you know, if so long as you're not doing it and you're not, you know, being kind of like a douchebag or kind of being like an asshole and like this is the reason why, like you're looking at different people, right? Like you can modestly practice and you never know who you can inspire. And I held on to that mentally and I was like, I like that, you know, I like that, you know, because the way that I train, right, it is, I guess, a little bit more flashy than like the mainstream or like the SOP, right? I like the map. It's not really like on the map kind of a thing because I train differently, so I perform differently, and I felt like that's why, like, you know, I have the successes or like accolades that I do have, right?
And you're athletic too.
Yeah, and I have, you know, the athleticism as well, you know what I mean? So I value, you know, all the gifts and talents and abilities, but that was just kind of something that I felt conflicted about for a very long time. I don't want to be out and like, you know.
That's the cool thing though, right? Like you didn't do it for showboating to try to. Yeah, you didn't do it for showboating. You did it for yourself at the park, and that's what inspires other people to do it. Because then you might inspire somebody at the park that's been wanting to get into a certain martial art.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they go into they talk to you and they're like, oh, where are you training? And then you find them at your dojo. And that's the cool thing about it.
Which has happened before. It's happened before. It's happened at the Rutgers campus when I would train like inside the gym, like the studio. And it's happened, you know, like, you know, just at like Warren Ankle Park. That's what, you know, London.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's interesting because people normally will always judge a perception, but what you should do is always judge your intention. If your intentions are good, if your intentions, like you said, I go to, you know, when I was working out, he was kicking, right? The bag, I never saw any sort of what he said, like he was just practicing. He was exercising, and the way I see it when I go there, I'm exercising. As a matter of fact, I look like a 100-year-old man going in there with a belt on my leg because of my sciatic nerve being pinched on my back. So I have to wear this band on my leg, right? So it doesn't hurt when I practice like boxing, right? Or when I run. So I already come running. I'm like,
I was like, you came from running. He's like, yeah, I see. He's like, I'm gonna run back. I was like, you ran?
And I was already tired. But it I need the Cortezes. But it's funny what he mentioned because, like, for example, he was he was kicking, I was boxing on the other side,
Mhm.
and either him or I felt that we were not showing. We were just exercising.
Yeah.
That was it. I think if somebody came, I'll be honest with you, if somebody came to him and would have asked him, "Hey, can you show me that?" I'm pretty sure he would have taken his time
Yeah.
to show that person a technique. Why? Because he's been through the ropes of mentorship,
Yeah.
right? And he's already in that journey to even perfect that craft. So, people, if you see Malik out there kicking ass, trust me, this man will stop just to teach you something, right? Because at the end of the day, you never know when that is going to serve you well. And let me ask you something. What are your thoughts about Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali? I know me and Kev's talk about it, but what is your perspective?
I love them. Absolutely love them. I felt like they kind of brought the philosophy with the martial art, and that's what really made it become an art. And just watching them perform and like do things, Bruce Lee with his movies and Muhammad Ali and all of his fights and everything. You can literally, I feel like you could probably talk to anybody like on the street or like most people on the street and be like Bruce Lee, and they would know that name, right? And then you have to watch, like, why do they know that name? Is it just because he was a great fighter? There were a whole bunch of great fighters, right? China produced a whole bunch of different fighters, right? There've been a whole bunch of like, Muslim boxers, right? Like, like there's been, Mike Tyson, right? You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, oh, there's like a whole bunch of, but like, why is it like, like what is that you have to say about them? And what I liked about both of those fighters is just their mindset and kind of like what you were mentioning before, Kevin, where you had kind of said like, right, like when you're put in, I had mentioned when I was in like uncomfortable situations and I was able to kind of take that and bring it like to the outside to use in another way, like kind of like outside of like martial arts in itself. So it's like there's a gift inside of like what I'm doing that I can take or I can extract out to use at another point in time. I kind of feel like the same way with like Muhammad Ali or Bruce Lee, right? In them doing their craft, there's beauty inside of that they were able to kind of take out, and the morality and the discipline and being good people. You could see that their aura radiates, and that's how people remember them, right? They have a famous connotation associated with their name, not an infamous one, right? Because, I mean, I can think of, some fighters that don't really have the best, weren't really kind of known, I'm sorry to say it, but like, Mike Tyson, I love him. Everybody loves him. But everybody, kind of is aware of like, he's such a great fighter, but he, in the ring, when he started to kind of be around like, not the best company, when he lost Cus Tomato, and then he kind of started to have like different people in his circle, you started to notice his spirituality was kind of, going south. And then that manifested in his fight. This is why that sports psychology, aspect comes into play. And when you start to notice that go south, his performance wasn't the same. Then he, got caught up with doing the wrong things. But now he's older and he's kind of out of it. I don't know if he's out of it. I heard there's some talk about him maybe doing like exhibition match or whatever, He did it with Roy Jones Jr., but like I think there's another talk about him doing another one. I don't really know. I'll keep my comments to myself in that regard. But now he's a little bit older and you're seeing he's doing podcasts. And you're seeing that his mentality has changed, right?
Beast is more under control.
His beast is more under control. He's wiser. He's actually promoting good things out into the world. And I feel like he's, I'm not really just sure what his beliefs are, like religious beliefs are, but you can just kind of see like, him as an icon for boxing. It started to resonate a little bit more as him being like a good beacon for change and kind of seeing like, this is how he was here. And this is his spiritual growth. And this is now how he's going to be recognized. And that's why I would kind of put him in the same basket as like Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, where now it's not just, they're just fighters. They're spiritual beacons for change.
And that's interesting because that was on the spot because that's the journey to identity, right? For example, Mike Tyson, probably one of the most technical fighters of all time. But if you look at Ali's old tapes, a lot of boxing instructors tell you to never do what he did. He didn't know how to. He didn't jab like a boxer would jab. So it's funny because he had an identity so structured that he didn't care. He was unique to his style, just like Bruce Lee was unique. And he said, "Well, this is my conviction, right? I have to live or die by it."
Yeah.
And it's funny because you both of you guys hit it on the nail of it, because the journey to identity, right? These individuals had an identity that was boosted by their convictions, right? What they believe is what made them. And for example, Ali was able to not only reinvent himself, but also to be more of that humanitarian, which Tyson has become humanitarian through his journey.
Sure.
But also you got to see the trauma Tyson came from, right?
Yeah.
You know, he didn't come from a strong, I would say, from mom and dad were there to structure him, discipline. He was blessed that Cus was able to see the better good in him. Mm-hmm. And the fascinating thing, I'm pretty sure that, and you know, Tyson, a lot of his good philosophies are not only from that life experience through the suffering, because the man, we got to admit, he suffered a lot through his life, right? But that voice of Cus D'Amato must be so strong in his heart and his conscience that he today, now that you can see the man, he wants to do well for himself and for others. How impactful was this man in his life? You know, because I'm pretty sure he misses him. I'm pretty sure he misses him. And the what if question, like, what if he would have been there, right? Where would I be? And exactly. And to me, I have a lot of respect for Tyson, because Ali and Bruce Lee had identity. They were strongly mentally and physically. Tyson had to go through a journey of pain to acquire that. And today he looks back, I'm pretty sure he probably doesn't have many regrets or no regrets, because that's what made him wise today, right? But the what if question, like, what if Cus would have been there 10 more years? Can you imagine the like that Tyson skill set with inner peace, with I guess like a better psychology about winning and losing, and training and discipline? You know, this guy would have been.
He would have his piece. He would have been in the rankings with
Yeah. And the funny thing is that Tyson adores Ali.
Yeah.
He loves him. He loved him.
Yeah. I think they met on like a talk show.
In a talk show, and then they became.
Ali was like, "We gotta beat him for me."
Against Larry Holmes.
Yeah.
Yo, Tyson beat the crap out of Holmes, man. That was a beatdown. But you know, it's incredible. Like, and I give a lot of respect to Tyson, overcoming his demons, right, and finding the better version of himself. And you know, being that human being that probably he always wanted to be, he just didn't know how to. You know,
I think now he's kind of doing that I think now he's recognizing himself and other people that were also in that situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where he could finally help out. Like Cus recognized it in Tyson, but we don't
Yes.
really know his background. Like something must have happened in his coach's background to know, like, that guy has something.
To see the talent.
Yeah.
But Cus was so smart, because he saw the boxer, but saw something more than the boxer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you have the experience Cus D'Amato, you don't only recognize the raw talent. Mm-hmm. You see, like, where that evolution is gonna take that. When he saw him, it was like, yo, this kid is a specimen of its own. But all it needs is, if with the polishing, which he did. But the sad part is he didn't go through the whole polishing, right? And we only saw like the virtual polishing of a young Mike Tyson, right? You know, imagine, I'm telling you, if he would have been around until Tyson was in his 30s, there will be a major evolution of Tyson. You gotta remember, Tyson was only like 18, 19, 20 when he was
First picked him up, man.
yeah, when he was world champion. He was young, 20, 21, I think, when he won the world champion, something like that, or before that, if I'm incorrect.
Maybe that's his way. Like maybe his way of becoming. He's not softer, just more balanced.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. He said he's not soft. Yeah, so Tyson, don't come beat us up. You know, we don't think you're soft. You're
Never
hard.
said
Yeah,
that.
we never said that.
I know what
We know-
happened when
we know-
somebody called you soft in the press conference. No, it's all good.
You are hardcore. We know that, but
Yeah.
we definitely see how your experience made you a well-balanced man in everything, you know, and your philosophies and the way you view the world now and how you see yourself, right?
That might be his way of honoring cuss too, right?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta honor the person almost walking through the ropes of it's the gym, but not only the gym, you know, it's life. Like everything expands over to life itself. So like
Yeah.
the honoring of cuss to maybe be like, what would it goes like the saying, what would Jesus do? What would cuss do? Right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. That's nice. It's funny you mentioned that. I thought about. I think it was like a podcast. Or do you guys know Francis Ngannou? He was like the UFC heavyweight champ, and then now he kind of went to boxing. He was talking to Francis, and he was like, "You have a lot of talent." He's like, you have a lot of skill. He's like, and you're favored by God. And he's like, but you're also favored by the devil. And I was like, yo. And he was just like, yeah, like, you have all these gifts, but the devil also like wants to come for you, like be with the guy you came to the dance with, like, you know what I mean? Like, don't go to the dark side, kind of like one of those things. And I was like, yo, like, yeah. I was just like, yo, like, Mike is dropping like knowledge bombs. I was like, that's cool. Like, I like watching that stuff like on social media, like. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How about with Tyson, right? Yeah, he'd be on like the Joe Rogan podcast and like, different stuff. I like to see those kind of things, yeah.
That's gonna be a fun.
So interesting, and like, he's so calm and patient with it. And you can see he's enjoying himself. He's not like he has to be there, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Chill. He's super chill.
super chill, relaxed, talks about his experiences and he shares different things.
His
And
stories are pretty good too.
really good.
He says his little story. And just to keep in touch, Made in New Jersey restaurant, guys, 614 Elizabeth Avenue. Come check it out. Really good food, very good breakfast. Come here. It's a nice place where you can actually hang out, and the food is actually delicious. Now we're gonna go into the military, all right? Which we spoke about a lot about discipline, but now we're gonna take it even up a notch about discipline, because the military is all about hierarchy and discipline.
Yeah.
What made you go into?
Actually, I wanted to ask you that question because
Put me on the spot.
if you don't mind,
No, I'm good.
but I was just curious.
You're cool, man.
Because especially like we had met in the park, and you had saw like my Rutgers veteran hat when I was over there, and we immediately hit it off real quick. So I was just always kind of curious about like because of course when you went in and when I got in, I only got in 3 years ago. You've been in for
Yeah, quite a while.
good minute, so I've always been, kind of curious just to kind of hear from you, what was life like before you went in? What was your mentality before going in? Did you have any support? And then like when you went in, just kind of like the changes while you were in. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
my journey was very complicated, right? I was in a position where I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to go with my life. And also my daughter was probably like about a year old, and I was broke.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to school, and I didn't have the money to go. But also there was my patriotism towards my country, because that's when 9/11 just happened.
Yeah.
So all these things combined were like a little exit to journey into seeing what my future could be if I joined the military, right? Which offered at that time, GI Bill and all these opportunities. I also came from military high school prior to that, so I knew what to expect, right? So when I went into the Army, it was, I'll be honest with you, I laughed. because it was fun. It was funny.
It was
Like
fun.
basic training was probably one of the most funniest stories of
You were the guy in the platoon that got everybody smoked.
stupid things. I actually, as a matter of fact, I was always squared up. Like I was always good. It was it was the morons next to me that were always doing something dumb, and you will end up laughing afterwards because it would. Let me tell you one thing, man. I'll tell you one story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, normally in the Army, in the morning, you wake up before you do exercise. They want you to drink a full canteen of water. I don't know if they still do that.
They did that, yeah.
So they tell you drink water, right? So you take the canteen, you drink the whole thing. You're supposed to put your canteen on your head so it doesn't have no water.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this guy, Israel, he's from Haiti, right?
Okay.
He was a good friend, man. So he was always next to it, but he was always messed up, messing around.
Damn.
Forgetting things, right? He goes out and he has no canteen. So the drill sergeant comes like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. You're going to be in the desert, but don't worry. I got a solution for you. You're never going to be dehydrated. So, you know, there's the Jeeps, the military Jeeps have that 5-gallon, that huge 5-gallon jug.
Yeah.
So the drill sergeant takes that stuff and says, Israel, go and fill your canteen. And he's like, the canteen was the 5-gallon thing.
Oh.
So he fills that up and he says, well, now you drink water. Watch how Israel does. So he can barely lift the thing up and drink. You're supposed to drink. So he's just tossing all the water in his BDUs. And then he puts that thing there, right? And he's all completely soaked. Everyone is trying not to laugh, bro. Oh, you find that fun? Drop, get me 50, right? So everyone is trying not to laugh.
Oh, and that's horrible.
This is nothing. So we were on the field doing a 10-mile stretch, right? Okay. In full BDUs. So this dude, so they after you fill your canteen. So guess what? Israel had to refill his canteen. This dude was dragging. He couldn't walk anymore. He was dragging. So what we did, because we were run out of water, so we would tell Israel to hook us up with some water so his canteen. But I'm telling you, man, that's just one story. There's so many stories, man. But that's really why I joined the Army. I found it as an escape to my financial situation, to not knowing what to do in life. Also, the support of financial support. And maybe at that time I wasn't sure if that was going to be a career, but as I went into the Army, I also noticed that there was so much intellect in me that wasn't going to be beneficial for myself being there, because in the Army is about follow instructions, right? And that normally, what it does, it definitely doesn't allow you to showcase your creativity. So right in there, I knew after those 4 years that I was in the Army to leave to educate myself. And also that's where I found my faith in God, right? Which is one of the greatest gifts that I found. The greatest gift was to find God in that journey in the military. So there's no regrets with regards to my military career. But, it was a harsh decision. I remember the recruiter waiting for me downstairs to take me to Fort Hamilton. Yeah. And I didn't know exactly if that was the right option, but I did it.
So you feel kind of like, I don't know.
Well, at the time I was married. I was married young, so that was my thought. It's like, am I doing the right thing, leaving my spouse behind? Am I doing the right thing? And I still don't know if that's the right answer, because what built me was all these experiences, good and bad. So if I would have not taken that option, I don't know what the kind of man I would have become. I would have not found God. I would have not found the education I needed, or also the experience to know that I have the intellect to do more, right? So that's where I don't regret any of my choices in terms of the military, but I did I did find out more about myself through that journey.
I feel like a lot of service members would agree with you, especially going in and like, going to basic training and going to like, your job training, and then just being around military culture. It's like totally different than civilian culture.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there's just like straight liberty, like everywhere. Over there, it's like your boots can't even be like, like you can't have one lace. Yeah, like they always got to be bloused. You know what I mean? Like, the uniform has to look a certain way. Don't let your patches be on the wrong side. Like, you can't even look like this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like this, you can't even look like this.
Yeah. You know what's funny is like the military treats civilians like morons. Let's be honest. Look, I'm just telling you the way it is, right? Oh, you want to be a damn civilian? Like it's like the lowest class because they see them as indisciplined, as people that don't have a sense of urgency.
Right.
They don't have the training that you're supposed to be a killing machine in the army, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny because when you become a civilian, right, and you're like, wow, now I went through all that high speed stuff to become a moron again. What is that?
Yeah, right, yeah.
I think that comes into like structure hierarchy, right? Like in the military, they give you the structure, they give you all that. Some people don't know how to build structure, right? Some people don't know how to have that certain structure, and the military becomes great for them. Like I have my dad. He went to the army. My sister, my half sister, I was like, yeah, she's my sister. So she also went to the Air Force. And one thing that, again, divorced parents, etc. She wasn't too much around my dad. You know how dads really give that structure, certain stuff. For moms, it's kind of harder to get that structure. It's just harder for that. Right, so the military helped her out in building structure. I think she did find it harder when coming back to the civilian world because then the structure wasn't set for her.
Yeah.
That's what makes it the hard part when coming out of it, because then it's like now it's that free roam play into adjusting back into the civil life, and then finding out what the talents you brought from the military, what's gonna fit those elite talents, because they're elite talents, right?
Yeah.
What's gonna fit those elite talents into the civilian status, right? And it gives you a lot of leader, like those will open up so many leadership roles if applied and promoted correctly. Those will give like a whole bunch of leadership roles, but that comes up to like, are you able to build your own structure, like afterwards? So
that becomes very difficult, especially like if you don't have the resources or you don't know that you have the resources at your disposal to help you transition back into the civilian life. Like I'm one of the managers at the Rutgers Veterans House at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, the flagship campus. And our organization basically works with military affiliated students. So that means you could be a dependent, you could be currently serving, you could be a veteran. As long as you're using military benefits, you're welcome over to the Rutgers Veterans House. We invite everybody. Anybody's more than welcome to come over there, but for you to be like, a part of like our program and like our work study program and everything, you need to be using benefits. So I feel like it's one of my favorite experiences being at Rutgers because I get to meet and interact with such a wide array of some kind of military affiliated person, right? Like, it could be as young as like an 18-year-old dependent or like a 35-year-old Air Force, served 8 years using post 9/11 from like Texas. So like over there at the Rutgers Veterans House, I absolutely love it over there. We just have like that kind of, mix, that kind of like that potluck dinner that we have over there. Everybody kind of bringing different experiences and different hardships, transitioning. We had one guy that like just got out of the military like in August. The semester started like that next month. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, I served like 8 years. And it's like, he served 8 years, and the first place you come to after, boots on the ground is from a Texas culture, right? Like Southern kind of culture, right? And military structured to now coming over to Rutgers, the biggest like university in New Jersey. And New Jersey culture is totally different than like how it is over there in the military. And now it's like, okay, you might be free if you were just like, not going to college, right? Like liberty to do as you choose. But at Rutgers, it's like there's so much you can get into that it can almost become intoxicating or suffocating.
Overwhelming on what to choose next.
Overwhelming, right? Or who can I go to if I need help? Who can I talk to, right? And they're college students, so they're kids, they're learning about stuff, right? Like, it's easy for them to just kind of like, oh yeah, I went from high school to now I'm over here, I'm a freshman, right? Even within the college community, right? Like, people can be transfer students. You can have international students. You can have people come from military. You have people that come from like, this side of the country. People that are like, born and raised in this town. All different kinds of people. Service members, I feel like, have like one of, if not the hardest or most challenging transition.
I have to agree with that because so the military trains you to become adaptable to war, to survive the more harsh situations, life or death, but doesn't train you to survive in a calm environment, right? In an environment where there is no danger, right? And it's almost like it's so I would say it's the training is so good, but also comes with its bad. That's why I always say there's always a loss and a win, and that's the loss in that win. You know how to if there was a war right now, you know how to get through it.
Right.
But if the war stopped, you become unadaptable to that. You become adaptable through the hardship of war, but unadaptable uh, in a stage because you're stuck with your trauma. Until you get unstuck with that trauma, you're able to start finding purpose in a unstructured lifestyle, right? So it's almost like how do you get it's not even about the tools because the Department of Defense it's not like there's no money there. There's a lot of money in the Department of Defense. It's just the programs are not consistent or it's not well structured to assist that military, that veteran that's coming out of the military. Because it's not only about money. It's about what is your support system? Who is there to greet you, right? And I think this is where also the Veterans Affair has to structure themselves even further. Some of our people that are in the military come from foster care. What are they going back to? Right? What are they going back to? They go back to nothing without a job. Because you got to remember, once you leave the military, you're unemployed.
Right.
You don't get a paycheck. You can't say, "Oh, I got rent for the next 6 months." No, it's like you're thrown. It's like mom got mad at you, threw you out of the house, and you're on your own. That's the reality of a veteran, and not every veteran, but I would say a very large quantity. I was among one of them. I had to find a construction job, and I was fortunate that these Italian guys were very patriotic that they allowed me to go to school as I was working there. They were like, "I'll pay you the full 8 hours. Don't worry. Leave at 1 o'clock."
Wow.
Yeah, but you see, how often do you find someone like that that is gonna help you get through? Right? It's very slim the chances, right? So I think that's the biggest opportunity. A system that covers not only the financial aspect, because the finances are not there to help you unless you use your GI Bill and then they pay you for boarding and rooms and all these different things. But what happens is you're unemployed.
Is there any, like, how they condition you to get set for war and to be like a survival need for that, right? Do they condition you back for the civilian world? Like
They have like a
Like a month a month of like doing these little things. So it's what they call it. I forgot the name.
It's
been
like
a
it's
while.
another kind of transition, kind of a program. At least for like soldiers that get sent out like on deployment, for example.
It's like a checklist of
Yeah, like a checklist. Like,
yeah.
okay, did you complete this? Did you go to this? You know what I mean? Did you meet with the VA hospital? Did you
Like
talk to
SOP,
this
it's
kind of?
basically like an SOP rather than the.
On paper, it looks good
Paper,
that you
yeah.
went through all these things, and it's a
Yeah.
good initiative. Don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it needs to be more prolonged, right?
think
Because, for example, you could be fine without PTSD showing in the next year or two. It could show in 10 years. What do you do then? When I got really bad PTSD, the insurance companies did not cover for mental health at that time. I went for a whole year without working, without collecting unemployment. Not only I was sick, but I didn't have any income coming, right? So imagine before me where there was less of that. There was no structure. Think about people from Vietnam. And this is why when I hear, how corporations or people use the veteran insignia as a way of, sailgating through I would say through propagandas. I'm like, if you really wanted to do something good for the military, right, or good for your veterans, why do veterans work on Veterans Day, right? These guys sacrifice their life for you not to do it. Second, what do you do for these individuals when they go into mental? Do you support them financially, and also in most cases they don't, right? I think last 2-3 years they started more with the mental health problem, right, supporting it. But think about veterans that don't come out with honorable discharge, right? I don't even like touching that subject. They get no benefit. They got nothing. Look, in my time, when we came back from Iraq, I would say about 50-40% of soldiers in my battalion were doing drugs, Percocets. Why? Because they didn't know how to deal with all the trauma, right? And this is in the military. Now think about when they left. Some of them left with, not honorable discharge. What did they get in return for serving their country, right? How does the VA only consider honorable people to have benefits? What is dishonorable to me is the fact that if these people sacrifice their time and their life and they happen to get on drugs because they didn't know how to deal with trauma, and at that time there was not a lot of studies about PTSD, right? But then the military condemned them to be not honorable, other than honorable discharge or whatever discharge they get, right? How did you take care? What are you doing today for those veterans? What are you doing today? Because those veterans were only 18, 20, 21 years old at that time. They didn't know any better. You can't expect them to think like a 40-year-old wise person. They're going to make dumb decisions. But when you needed them, they showed up for you. I'm concerned about those veterans, the ones that don't have benefits, the ones that can't go to the VA hospital. Because if you do have an honorable discharge, you're treated like a king in the VA hospital. You go there and you were not honorable, you have to go through court system so they can approve. So it takes years and years and years in court for them to say, well, you can see yourself at the VA. So I do think there's a responsibility when it comes to veterans that don't reach that honorable. But again, who judges honorable? I went to a war where we were supposed to find weapons of mass destruction that never existed. Where's the honor to fight that war? Right? There was none. So the judgment of honorable.
There's no compensation for kind of like the hardship.
Exactly. I don't see George Bush, the military saying that he sent dishonorably all the soldiers to fight a war that supposedly was weapons of mass destruction, I don't see him held accountable for it, right? But again, a lot of soldiers did get held accountable for their actions, which is the right. Perhaps it must be the right thing to do. But if you're going to do it for those soldiers, do it for the chief also as well, right? The one that's commanding as well.
Like if a boat goes down, the captain should go down.
Exactly.
Not just the boat and have the passengers and the captain see free. It's like something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that the government should take more proper stances and then the corporations should assist? Like who does the response I think the responsibility falls on everybody, right? Responsibility falls on everybody for the group to support this group that has been protecting the freedoms of America, right? So I think who holds the responsibility to then support the veterans outside, and who is to assist?
So the DoD is responsible for veterans. Once you finish your military career, the DoD provides funds to the Veterans Affairs, and the DoD provides funds to different organizations that are trying to help veterans. The issue with the organizations is that they're people with goodwill, but not qualified.
Like what is that?
Like for example, let's say I'm opening support an organization that's going to help you with preparing you for a job, but you don't have the qualifications to teach that, but you're an enthusiastic person to do it. You're a good, willing heart to do it,
Yeah.
right? So there's a difference between having qualities and being qualified.
That's true.
So if you're qualified and you own this organization, or if you own it but you hire people that are qualified, you're gonna provide the very best elements or the best I would say teaching to the people that go there to get these teaching. That's like, for example, at Taekwondo. Imagine if I'm just saying the blue belt is teaching the black belts how to do something, right? It's inadequate. It's going to be unprofessional. It's not going to get the best out of it. So I do believe organizations that help military personnel have very good will, but they need to surround themselves with qualified people that are expert in the field. Like a hospital, you need to have certified doctors, right? So I do believe that that's the opportunity. And don't get me wrong, these organizations, they get a lot of grant money, right? They get a lot of sponsorship,
Yeah.
and all these things, and they're doing their best. Their intentions are good, but I would say, they are
Their selection.
limited. They're limited because of that, because they're not asking themselves, right? The question is, do I have the right people
Right.
to give them what they need, right? And that's the fundamental question for anything you do. Do I have everything that I need to provide the best service? And if you don't, yeah, cool, start it, but evolve into it.
Right.
What are your thoughts, Malik?
It's funny that we're talking about this, because these are literally the kind of conversations that I have at the Veterans House. Different kinds of programs, different like workshop events that you can host. Like financial literacy classes. How can you make it without a degree? How can you try to get a degree? What kind of different things can you do to kind of help your transitioning into civilian life, better? What do you need? It's kind of more like, because I feel like soldiers have this mindset as well, like kind of like a individual mindset. I don't know, at least for me anyway, like I feel like the military does a good job of trying to get that out of your mindset, right? They want to try to get that out of you. Like, you're not an individual, you are a part of a team, right? You are a part of a group, right? The soldier's creed, you know what I mean? Like, inside of it, it's like, you're a member, you're a soldier and a member of a team, right? So if you need help, and they only recently started pushing this out more, like if you need help, go and ask people for help. When you come out of it, right, and now you're not there anymore. You really need to go and make sure that like different organizations and programs know like what you need help with, and it just kind of sucks because a lot of it is like you have to really do your due diligence. You have to know, and there's also people that you know as well. It's not always what you know; it's about who you know,
Yep.
right? Because if you don't know much about something, it's like, okay, I don't need to know a lot about how the VA works. But if I know somebody that's over here in East Orange and like, you know, they worked over there like with the VA office as like a civilian worker, right? Like that's a connection that I have, right?
Exactly.
So when you're coming out and think about it, it's been like 4 years, right? Like, you know, you've been active duty for like 4 years and a lot has changed, you know, family members have passed, you know, hardships, you know, maybe your family, like they lost the place they were living at, right? So like, you know, the car is gone, you know what I mean? You got no money, right? Like, you know, and you maybe had like leave for like what, 30 days maybe or whatever, right? Every so often and again. So like so much changes over that span of time. And also being within the military, you're not really taught to like, well, I mean, at least you could probably respond to it or not, but I don't really feel like they teach you like, hey, this is a smart thing to do with your money for your future. The most you'll probably get is like a thrift savings plan. And it's like, hey, put this into it and then invest. And like when you get out, okay, like you'll get like this or whatever. This is the percentage that's matched. You're not really taught like, hey,
Yes.
when you get out, you know, roll your money over into something, or, you know, have this set aside of while you're in, you know, go to tuition assistance or whatever, right? And like, you know, use that to like, you know, earn your degree. I know a couple soldiers that are in military service right now, active duty, and they're using what's called tuition assistance. It's a program that gives you like a certain amount of money for like college credits and stuff, right? I also have access to that too. But like while you're in it, you know, you can have the military pay for your education if you want to do something like that, right? So that's kind of like it's put out there, but I don't really feel like it's promoted as much because like the soldier, right? Like they'll say, hey, like, you know, we love you, we support you, you know, like whatever you need, let us know. But when you get out, you're kind of like screwed, like you're on your own.
Well, you're not far from reality there. And I do think the scrutiny of things, it's like I seen this, like you said, a lot of the Veterans Affair does a lot of workshops. The workshop is not an educational tool, right? You can't be educated just through a workshop. A workshop is almost like I'm going to show you the intro of something, of give you like a perspective of what I want to teach you. Now, if I want to teach you well, we need to do this one-on-one for a considerable time period until I see that you can do it on your own, right? And I think that's what's missing. The initiatives are good. The workshops, hey, you want to find a job? We're going to bring all these people. But again, what kind of job are you getting? Like, for example, veterans, there's a lot of workshops for veterans that are going to maintenance. Do you think that you being, and again, nothing wrong with I done maintenance as I went to school, right? Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But is that going to take you out of your poverty? Is that going to give you a middle class opportunity to live with dignity and not think about surviving, right? It's not. And so I do think there needs to be something better structure in that financial, because if you pay your dividends and you risk your life for your country, and then you come back and the guy that just, again, nothing against immigration, but the guy that never went to the military, is not a citizen, has more opportunities than the guy that sacrificed his life. Right in there, that's like somebody hitting you right in the head, and you just fall unconscious because you don't know how to react to it, right? So to me, those are the perspective. This is why I do think that our people, the people that are meant good, don't say thank you, veterans. Trust me, thank you doesn't pay rent, doesn't pay any bills.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. You know, what if you really want to help veterans, manifest your discontent against policies, procedures, the police, whatever, do the same thing for veterans. Go out there, fight for them to have a more dignified life, a better structure, lifestyle, opportunities. But like I said, you go through these workshops, and I look, again, I'm not I don't want to throw down the intention these companies coming to acquire veterans to work, but it's what position are you giving them? Supposedly, right? You were trained to survive in the most hostile environment, and you led the team, and you were able to do all these great things. But then your that work experience get translated to be the maintenance guy.
Right.
That leadership that you have is for you to start at level 1. So what is the equivalent of that experience? For example, if you were a manager, and this is what I don't get, if you were a manager or executive in a company, guess what you're going to be looking for if you move to another company?
Exactly.
You move into that or higher.
You get put in entry level position.
Exactly. But in the military, you can be a sergeant, you can be a first sergeant, E3, and you know what civilians look at you? Oh, there's no
there's no
there's no equity. That's the thing. That's the word. There is not a transitional equity of your military experience into civilian experience. But then again, who regulates that?
I will, but go for it, cut.
I think it's judgments of the people who are hiring. Like, why would they? For example, I think every skill is transferable. Like, there's certain skills that are transferable. Leadership skills, transferable to multiple aspects. Like, leadership skills are instinctual. They're not something you can teach, but something that's built into somebody, right? That they had to build that in. Like, that becomes a part of somebody's identities, core, etc. You can't really teach. You can hone in on it. You can go hone in on leadership, but you can't really teach that to somebody. So those skills, like those military people, should be going, like coming out of like leadership in the military because those skills are honed in. They become a part of them. They should be put in leadership as well as in the corporations because again, those are honed in skills. Like you could teach the system. You could teach a corporate system down. You could teach somebody how to run a certain thing.
But then I have a counter to that. So what if you have somebody that has more seniority with the company, and now I just got out, right, as like a non-commissioned officer, and I'm trying to apply here? Where would the equality be? Where would you give me the supervisor position because I served X amount of years here? Should I just get that supervisor position, or would I need to be with that company for X amount of like? I'm curious what your response would be to that. I'm just trying to think from like a corporation, like a business, a manager's mindset. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's been with, I'll go back to UPS. I used to work with UPS, before, during, and after COVID. And we did have like a guy that was, he was from the military, like he used to be in the military. And he just automatically got a supervisor role, right? It's a different contract that you sign, because with UPS entry level position, you're with the Teamsters union. Right, and then if you're like a supervisor, you're actually with like UPS management, right? In order for you to get this supervisor position, you need to get referred by a supervisor or like a manager, right? And they're going to do that based off of their criteria. So you need to have like X amount of time like working with the company, get your seniority, right? Be in good standing, right, with the company. So I'm curious, how do you think that they should go about doing something like that if you have like, somebody that just got out? Should they just go in for that role, or should they have seniority? And how would that kind of be fair for somebody that has seniority?
It'll go on two different things. There's a role involving leading a team of people, or is the role of if it's leading a team of people, like, are you qualified or do you have the qualities, right? Like, if you're qualified to leading a team of people, if you have all those, you're qualified for leading a team of people. That leadership skill.
Okay.
You should, and you're just working the system you're working the system. Anybody can teach you a system, but not everybody can teach you how to lead a team, how to work that team, and how to build a team. So if you have those qualities and you're qualified to leading a team, then that should go into it. But then off seniority, if you're working the system and they just want you to stick by a system, like for example, like an assistant to a president in a corporation, they need to work a system, right? They need to know the system in and out. They need to know the corporation ins and outs. The system is no corporations, and to guide that leader to the certain system. So like that leader could be somebody from the military, and second in place should be somebody who was knowing the system. Because the military could work the people. The the assistant has been in more time in the corporation to work the corporate system. Like
I see what you're saying.
yeah, like quality over qualified. That person that led the people during survival. That's just a whole different level of leadership, because it's not like the civilian leadership. There's kind of more structure to it. Civilian leadership is kind of like a little bit. I would think that it's a little bit more like laid, not laid back, but like it's not as hard. Like you know, it may take somebody in the military to lead somebody. It might take 2 years for a project. Another one might take 10 years for a certain project. So like that's where I see the. Do you have the? Are you qualified for leading the people, or are you qualified for leading the system?
I believe it's more circumstantial, because to me, leadership is not about seniority, position. It's more based on what are you looking for, right? Like, for example, most company promote good workers to leadership jobs, and they end up being bosses, not leaders, because they're task oriented. Right. So when you're looking for somebody to manage tasks, you promote good workers because they understand the workload. But sometimes the bad part of that is that that's all you get.
That's all you get. I see.
Good workers that do a lot of work and have everyone work at that standard that they work themselves. And that's called a boss that manages their work and the work of everyone else. Now, does that necessarily mean they lead people? So leading doesn't require the management part, because they empower.
Right.
And they teach, just like Taekwondo. They teach, they promote, they evolve, everyone evolves with them. And there's continuism of the craft getting better and better, because there's a freedom of creativity following as they go through these tasks, right? And it's more about the people and the human capital growth than the task growth. So it all depends on what are you going to hire for. Do you want to hire, like you said, you were saying, do I hire somebody from the military that, okay, he's leading a team that is surviving, the most harsh environment. That means that man right there, or woman, is going to sacrifice everything for his team. And his team will always be first. So we need to understand that concept of leadership. What kind of leader is in the military? The selfless one, the one that's willing to give his life for, the one that's going to lead by example, the one that's disciplined, the one that's structured, right? That's what you're getting with a military honor, integrity. Exactly. That's what you're getting. On the other hand, since you already know, because this person works in your company, you know the flaws and you know the virtues. And you got to ask yourself, can this person, if I'm looking for a leader of people, is this person a worker or a leader? Again, evolution of a worker, supervisor, manager. And they are limited to manage. Evolution of a leader, they learn all these stages, but they understand that the principle is not the task, is the people that make the task happen, right? So people move the numbers don't move itself. The tasks move the numbers, but they're influenced by people.
I like that, because I wanted to chime in. That's like being a non-commissioned officer and a commissioned officer.
Yes.
So like, in the military, right, like with the rank structure, you have the enlisted side and you also have the officer side, the commissioned side, right? The enlisted side, those are all kind of like the workhorses. They're the ones doing all the grunt work, right? Mm-hmm. And then within that realm of like the enlisted, you have NCOs, non-commissioned officers, the pride or the backbone of the military, because they're the ones executing the commissioned officer's plan of intent. Mm-hmm. The people that are in charge of like, how are we going to do this, right? Like, more so. People that answer the question, what are we going to do? That's the officer. How are we going to do it? That's the non-commissioned officer's job. So they work in conjunction with each other, right? Because the commission officer, he's going to make the plan, and the non-commissioned officer is going to ensure that he can get his team to work to make that plan executed and do it correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's kind of like that, and, coming back to what Wendell was saying, we're kind of, do you, because the realms, in the way you were explaining as well, the realms are different, right? You're going to continue to lead as a non-commissioned officer. You're going to stay within that leading soul, you know what I mean? You're going to be in that enlisted side, and you're going to stay here, but you're never going to be I guess, like, I don't want to say like true potential, but like your realm of opportunity kind of stays within here, right? So you're going to be the best at leading 20 soldiers, 40, 50. This is your realm of opportunity. But then when you transition to be a commissioned officer, now you're going to be in charge of making plans. This is kind of like going back to, CEOs, right? Like corporate level, right? They're making the plans with like kind of like the big heads. So I kind of think about it like that.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to chime in.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of like where, and again, what's the most dangerous thing? When a boss believes they're leaders. That is extremely dangerous. The most dangerous weapon in any organization is a boss believing they are leading and empowering. Because, so what happens when you're a boss, it's all about you and how it benefits your numbers.
Yeah.
Right? And how that is going to make you, go ahead. And how that's going to make you shine. Right? How it's going to make you shine, and how that's going to make the department look good, but you're not thinking about the bigger picture. Because you can't think about the bigger picture. You are the bigger picture. And your career depends on that. Right? So there's like, to me, in my career, I have seen 90% people being bosses thinking that they're leaders, and 10% of exceptional leadership, where I tip my hat and I say, thank you. Thank you for teaching. Thank you for empowering. Thank you for giving a memorable moment, because what I take away from those leaders is experiences, great experiences, moments. What I take away from bosses is learning a task. So which one is better? How somebody makes you feel because you were able to create something with them and be part of a plan and be part of something that created more revenues, or the task that once you leave that company you might not put into practice anymore.
Rather have the leader rather than the boss. Can I give a situational?
Yeah, go ahead.
And then can you explain the differences between the boss in that situation and the leader in that situation? I guess like a situational thing would be like, let's say there needs to get a task done. I'll bring it down to street cleaning. Let's talk about the bosses in street cleaning and the leaders in street cleaning. Let's say this block needs to get done by 11 o'clock. We only have 3 trucks out. I'm going to make it a little bit more simpler.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we need to sweep up the sidewalk.
Okay.
The boss just wants you to sweep it up. The leader also wants you to sweep it up. One of them just tells you just to do it. The other one gives you the intention behind it. How would a leader say clean up the street versus a boss saying clean up the street?
I think a leader, the first thing they do is they plan. They plot on how to get it done in the most efficient way where you feel part of that win. And then they explain the why. What's behind it? Why we have to do this? Why do we have to clean it this way? Or somehow, it has to get done by this time. And they inform you well, and they let you know what resources you have. And then what they'll do is ask, like, for example, if a leader knows well their human capital, they understand what each person is capable of doing. They're not playing dice, they're playing chess. So they're going to start piecing. They know, okay, this person I know is great at doing this, and because there's a deadline, I'm going to have to, and they explain that to them. You're great doing this. I need your assistance doing this. Once you do this, go help somebody else, and so on, so on. So they don't get onto like the categorizing somebody to just like, for example, well, we just got to clean this, the boss said this, and we got to do it, right? There's more information into it, but not only information. I do think there's also empowerment. They will, like, for example, a leader will be humble to ask, hey, you know something, we got to clean the street, but I haven't figured out yet this part. Can you've done this before. What are your thoughts? So now that's empowerment, right? Because they're okay being vulnerable. And trust me, when you're in a position of leadership and you've been with a team long enough, your team knows where you're vulnerable. They know exactly that's the weak spot of my boss. What the leader does, what the leader does, like, I'm gonna cover all my weak spots with the people that I have empowered, because that's gonna be part of me. Right? They're not going to be a shield for me. That's a boss mentality. I'm going to shield myself with my team. No.
They put the blame on people.
Exactly. The leader, what they do is like, this is part of me. And because it's part of me, now I'm strong. Not because of me. I'm strong because all my elements, all my team members is structured, right, in the way that we position each other, right? We now are strong. Meaning, if one piece is missing, that's my vulnerable spot, right? As a boss, is like my vulnerable spot. I'm gonna shield it just because I want to look good. Yeah. So there's a big difference with that, right? And it's funny because speaking about military discipline and all that, I do think we have Malik for that reason. Our expert in nutrition, discipline in nutrition. Yeah. Like nutrition perhaps is a big opportunity of education. What are your thoughts about, like, you went to school for nutrition and you learned so much from it. What is like a aha moment for you about like people in their diet that you're like, why?
So there's a lot of what we call disparities in communities that are kind of like the things that hinder you from getting like proper nutritional access, right? It could be things like income. It could be things like how far it is to get over there. It could be things like, do you have the education for it, right? Does it align with your cultural norms, right? Like, people from different backgrounds have different, foods that they eat, you know what I mean? And I also you had said like diet. So first of all, I just want to make sure that we have that definition understood. Diet is a pattern of eating. So when I actually speak with different people about like food and like diets, they're like, oh, I have to go on a diet. So the connotation is, oh, that means that I can't eat the foods that I want to. No. Diet by definition is a pattern of eating. Right? You can have a healthy diet, you can have an unhealthy diet. They get the negative connotation because you think of things like the ketogenic diet, right? Or you think of like the paleo diet, right? And those are restrictive eating patterns of eating, right? So then they restrict things like calories, restrict like macros, restrict like different things like that. And especially taking these kind of classes and also actually working, like just 2 weeks ago, I had gone to Fort Dix, to the McGuire side. So Fort Dix is a joint base. It has all different military branches. You have Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Army, Navy. Not the Space Force yet. But, apparently,
Let's go,
like,
Trump.
student, yeah, let's go, yeah.
He's gonna come with his space suit on.
Yeah. Elon Musk gonna be the commander in chief. He's gonna be like, all right, guys, let's do it.
Salute the troops.
Let's go. Yeah, let's get those robots out there. Come on. It's like a robot, like the movie.
You know, when I hear that branch, it reminds me of Duck Dodgers.
Duck Dodgers, yeah. It reminds me of like
Space
Star
Cadet.
Trek. It reminds me of like Star Trek. It's like, okay, Spock is out here.
Spock.
Private Spock. You know what I mean?
Spock, you're the man, though.
Yeah. Shout out to my boy. But yeah, like, you know, nutrition, you know, is very important. So like over there at Fort Dix, it's mostly like the medical side is kind of run by the Air Force. So I had to go over to the McGuire side, which is called the McGuire side of Fort Dix. I went over there to meet with a military doctor. And after that, I was like, hey, can I go get some glasses? He was like, yeah, sure, just go upstairs to optometry. When I went over there, I saw they had a dietitian sign that was in the same like office as the optometry. So I ordered my glasses and I was like, hey, can I speak with the nutrition or the dietitian? And they were like, oh yeah, I think that she's in today. And I was like, all right, cool. They were like, what do you want to know?
Was she like 300 pounds?
She was not.
I'm messing with you.
She was not.
That's like one of those big gym teachers.
Yeah, big gym teachers. Hey, I got you. Yeah, let's go. I got you. Don't eat that. Don't eat that. That's the crunchy crunch.
Samurai Taekwondo.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun though. When I actually got to meet her, because she was actually a nutritionist. And the difference between a dietitian and nutritionist is that a dietitian is accredited within the nation. So like, there's like a whole organization, like a program you need to have completed in order to be a dietitian. Nutritionist, you only really need like a degree, and then you can go and work anywhere. So I spoke with her, and she said, I actually asked her, is there a dietitian on post? So I wanted to ask him, I wanted to know, okay, do I want to do this, you know, when I, like later on, like, you know, when I come back and everything, do I want to be a dietitian? She said, well, we don't have one here. And actually, it's good that you came in because it's in very high demand for the military. There's not a lot of nutrition education kind of things. Within the military, you have like different programs. There's one called H2F, which is like health to fitness. The health part is kind of like nutrition, spirituality, mentality. Fitness is in its own realm. So learning about H2F, which you have in the Army at least, health was just kind of like an umbrella term for like these different aspects, but fitness is like its own term. So I felt like, okay, why can't it just be like, I mean, I don't want to change the program, but like I felt like, okay, like nutrition is literally hand in hand with fitness. You can't have one without, you can't have fitness without nutrition. You can't have nutrition without fitness, right? Because it's literally a package deal. And I felt like it was such a demeaning kind of a thing where it was like, okay, just health encompassed in and of itself, but also just go to the DFAC. Also just go to the commissary. DFAC is dining facility, which is like a cafeteria. You go and eat. Commissary is like the supermarket, like a ShopRite kind of thing, right? PX, Post Exchange, think about it as like a Walmart, right? For like soldiers. So this is what soldiers are limited to.
And Charlie's Steakhouse.
And Charlie's Steak. Oh yeah, and Charlie's and Popeyes. Yeah, you got the Popeyes. Yeah, all that, every single installation. But yeah, I'm actually kind of glad you mentioned that too, because every military installation they've got like deals or whatever with like Burger King and Popeyes.
Burger King is a big one.
Always Burger King. Always see a Popeyes on an installation, so they see all those different things. And the nutritional part, like, you know, what is the right thing to eat? What is a good diet? That pushed out to the unit. I feel like that really needs to be enforced in basic training and reinforced in like the rest of like your military career.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because basic training, they obligate you. They don't educate you. They obligate you to eat in a certain norm.
Good way.
Which you're looking for an escape route as soon as you're done with basic to go back into your old habits.
Exactly.
Instead of giving, so you're absolutely right. Maybe that needs to change. When your basic training is, how do you implement the educational part of nutrition? Like, for example, Yeah, you can eat the defects, by the way, Kebs. It's like a unlimited buffet of whatever, and it has everything. When I say it has everything,
Yeah.
you can literally find anything there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you can take as much as you want. Nobody's gonna tell you
Oh,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
That means you can eat
Yeah.
anything.
You
Healthy
literally
or not
any,
healthy.
and you won't know. They don't really put that out there. Like, you know, oh, this is like a good thing. Like one thing, I didn't mean to cut you off, but one thing that they, I was speaking with the nutritionist on post. She said, yeah, like over here in like the defects. So an installation should really have like a dietitian of like the commissary, which is like the supermarket, right? And then you should also have like somebody who's in charge of like the defect. They should be going in and like looking at different changes, labels, color coding, and everything, right? Now, I went to the Fort Dix defect, and they had labels on there. They had green, yellow, and red labels, right? When you see green, you're like, okay, this looks healthy. Doesn't really tell you how much salt is in it.
The specifics, right?
So when you actually like, you know, look at it, it's like, why is this green? Green, everybody thinks is green is great, right? Green is color money, green is color gold. Green is literally anything that's green, you know, photosynthesis, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know,
It's good.
green doesn't mean it's good, yeah. But it was referring to fat content, right? So if you saw like, you know, like that, if you saw like that chicken or whatever, right? And then you like a green, it's like, okay, like there's less fat, but how much salt is inside of there? You know, learn about that kind of thing, right? And then if you saw like fish, for example, this is where I think it's an interesting distinction because you have different types of fats. Saturated fats, unsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids are good for you. Actually, men need to have a certain amount of fat because if you don't have a certain amount of fat, your testicles will shrink. You know that your testicles will literally shrink.
Make your testicle look like raisins, guys. Eat your fish.
Eat your omega-3s, get your olive oil, all those kinds of things, right? Yeah.
Damn little raisins.
Yeah. It'd be tiny. Yeah, and it was crazy. I know this for nutrition. I know this for nutrition. No, he literally had like this like little model thing. And I looked at him and I was like, those look like, I don't know, like you want like oval olives. Like, and I was just like, what are those? And it was funny to me because I was like, what the hell am I looking at? He's like, well, your testicles should be like,
Yeah, normal, right?
yeah, like, you know, this is what normal should look like. If it doesn't, that's an indicator that you're probably not getting enough fat inside of your diet. So you need to add a little bit more fat, you know. It's contrary to the unpopular opinion that they have, well, more popular now in mainstream because they promote it everywhere. But fat is not your foe. Fat is not the foe. Right? Your real foe are things like your sugar, things like your salt, your unhealthy fats.
I have a question for you. And good thing you touched that subject about fat. What's a good fat versus what's not?
Sure.
There's a lot of again. I like to investigate before I do something, and to get the real information. And well, there's a saying that, for example, the fat that comes from the pork is not a bad fat either. If you want to, for example, stir fries, and I don't know how true this is, but this is very big in the Latin community. Maybe you can take this a little bit, but because they say it's natural, and again, I'm not. That's your experience.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, so and I can kind of you want some of that. So the term natural it's kind of different because there's a lot of chemistry and science that goes into it. I'll give you guys kind of the layman's terms for it. So natural fats are the fats that aren't altered or adulterated. So it's it comes from the animal itself. Trans fats, those are adulterated or things like hydrogenated oils or trans fats that can be found inside of the carcasses of different kinds of animals. Those are bad kind of fats because your body metabolizes it the same way that it would because it resembles a trans fat. I don't mean to edit this part out, but shit, I don't know if I can say it.
Freedom of speech, man.
Yeah, freedom of speech. Good.
Freedom of speech?
Yeah, man.
All right. Genders.
Oh, you can say it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead, man. So you guys know that term like cisgendered, transgendered?
Yeah.
So the best way that I can describe it is, your cis is like your natural, your trans is like your unnatural that resembles natural.
Okay.
So if you have like a trans man, I always get confused with it. It's like naturally a female, but it has altered itself or adulterated itself, changed itself chemically to resemble it, but you are actually this. The exact same principle applies to when you look at fats. Cis fatty acids, right? From chemistry, it's just kind of like it looks like this.
Okay.
Right? Trans looks like this.
So it has a complete chemical.
Has a different structure, and why that's important is because a regular fat can look like this.
Okay.
A regular fat can look like this, right? A trans fat also looks like this. But what's important is you look at kind of like there's like a double bond or whatever. If it's like a cis fatty acid, it'll look like this, and it'll change it from going like this to a break, and then kind of look like this. So now the body can metabolize that differently than it would for if it was just like this. Trans fat is the same chemical like structure as like one of those cis fats that might break this way, but it resembles the fat like this. So it breaks it down in it breaks it. It's the same molecule, but like it looks like the natural one, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So it takes more energy to have to break down the trans fats.
So your organs your organs are actually working hard.
Yeah. So exactly, that's exactly what it is. So it takes more energy for you to have to break down those trans fat, which is why they say don't consume any amount of trans fats. There's like a healthy limit. They say like 0.5 grams or whatever for trans fats. You'll find that inside things like peanut butter.
Really? For trans fats and peanut butter?
You can find,
Oh.
If you look at like some nutrition labels, you can actually see it. It'll put it on there. This is another thing that's important with labeling too. Like the FDA, they regulate like the labels and everything. So they'll put it out there. Hey, you have to put on there like how much fat is inside of it, right? Some companies thought they were smart, so they're like, okay, cool, we'll just put on there total fat, and that's it. But the FDA got caught on to it. They're like, no, you have to put on every different type of fat, monounsaturated, trans fat. And then when they started to have to put that on there, now people were saying, oh, there's like 5 grams of trans fats inside of this, right? For like, or it might say like, 2.5 for like one serving. Not everybody follows certain things, right? Just go with, how they like. So then like, if you really think about it, okay, now I'm actually consuming like 5, 7, 10 grams of trans fats, which isn't healthy. So you can imagine like you're consuming that unaware over time, and now you start to run things like congestive heart failure, high blood pressure, right? Now you compound that with sodium, salt, right? And you're not tracking any of that, right? Now you can just kind of, you can think about like the rabbit hole of effects that it can have on your health for the long term. So, that's just kind of my take on it.
I like your explanation because again, this is not to anyhow be against a certain belief or anything. It's just an explanation. So whoever wants to take this in the wrong way, it's your perception, your perspective, and respected. No harm's done, but I do see exactly where you take genetics. You're talking about genetic change, how that looks different when something is organic versus something that's inorganic. And I actually understand with the explanation what you tried to mean.
I just want to make sure that was, clear.
It was safe. It wasn't arbitrary, obligatory, or whatever.
Exactly.
It was a safe explanation.
Again, where the intention here is for us to broaden our perspective, and I think you did really well with it. What's interesting about what you're saying is about these different type of fats, like all the damage it can do to you, right? What would you say is like, for example, like a safe haven of some food selection that is always going to be the best for your body? And I will give you a testimony, right? I was getting a few weeks ago, because I'm going back working out eating a little bit more healthy now, little by little, getting into a better healthy routine of diet. And one of the things that I found was eating kiwi, like just like half of a kiwi a day, like helped me with getting like relief from getting bloated.
Good.
Yeah, and it was better than medicine. I swear to God, man. I just like, I have a friend who's like, hey, do this. I took one, and I was like I wasn't gassy or felt like bloated anymore. Yeah, and it works, and I feel great, right? What are those natural foods that you would say like go always there? That's safe.
Whole earth grown food sources. If it has to be processed in a plant or it comes from a bag, it's processed, it is not a good food option. I understand. Everybody understands this. Life, you kind of seek convenience, especially when you're working. Right? You're going from this place to that place. You need to eat something. You're gonna go, this is convenient. 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be processed. So your best bet for a safety net is to go with something that was never put inside a plant, right? Always safe, right? Nuts, seeds, leaves, vegetables. These are all safe bets, eggs. Something that was as close to natural as possible. Because the more unnatural or processed it's been, the more rated it was, the more processed it was, the more things they can add inside of it, preservatives, additives, right? Like salt, different coloring agents, different what are called like emulsifiers, different. This is all like in the chemistry behind it, which are all labeled on the ingredient label. People aren't taught about these kind of things, so they don't know things like, if you're gonna drink like a regular can of Coke versus sugar and stuff, right? You would kind of think, okay, this has like no calories or whatever, right? You don't know the side effects that come along with continually consuming this. You're just thinking, oh, I don't have any sugar.
That's crazy.
To be further from the truth, later on down the line, years later, you're not gonna have that amount of like calories or whatever, right? But like you're going to have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, from like the sugar alcohols, which is what they are, because if you're broken down and saying it's sugar, it tastes like it. So things like that, I just feel like those kind of things need to be taught to people a little bit better.
That's interesting. And these sugars that you put to make the 0 calorie effect, they're chemically done, right?
Sugar alcohols.
Throughout.
Yeah, sugar alcohol. So it's like it's kind of like a dextrose, like sugar molecule with like an alcohol attached to it. Chemically speaking, it doesn't break down the same way as sugar, right? Like glycolysis, that breaks down in a certain way. Your body, has a whole metabolic process for it. Sugar alcohols aren't broken down.
I recently just got a drink from, it was like the electrified drink, whatever those.
Electrified drink?
Yeah.
Is it like electrolyte kind of drink? What is it?
Yeah, it's like electrolyte kind of drink. Well, they market it as electrolyte type of drink.
Yeah.
And then I was reading the back label and I was like, oh crap, 36 grams it was like 15 grams of sugar per serving, and there were like 2 servings in the drink, and I was like 30 something grams of sugar. Right, and I bought it. I was like, I'm thinking this is gonna be a healthy drink. This is gonna get me like all hydrated for the day. I take a sip. I'm like it tastes a little nasty. I was like, it tastes like medicine. It's more
Okay.
anything else. And I didn't have fully understand it. I read the back. I don't understand any of the nutrition stuff on the back.
Yeah,
but I'm reading. I'm like seeing what I know about like the sugar in it, like grams. I'm like 30 grams in this bottle. Like what?
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's really important as well. If you look at the labels on the back, there's a sugar section, but there's also an added sugar section.
Yeah, it was.
So when you look at added sugars, it's bad.
It goes high for them.
Stay away from that, right?
Always stay away from it because it's just unnecessary calories for the sake of flavor, right? And they say, oh yeah, we have fruit juice inside of it. 10% fruit juice, 5% fruit juice, but the rest of it is just more sugar.
That's crazy.
Right? Or like a potent, add food additive
to kind of enhance the flavor. You still have the whole.
How do you think the average day consumer, whether going to the bodega or to the grocery store, how do you think they should shop strategically for their foods?
Good question.
That's going to be one of them. The second one, efficiency and effectiveness with natural foods. Is there a way to be fast with foods? Because like, for example, like fast foods came in now. They're not even like 100 years old yet. Like, they started coming when McDonald's started being born.
Yeah.
Right. So that from there, like fast foods are new to us. All our processed food is still kind of new to the civilization.
True.
You don't see the after effects yet, or the big huge effects of what
True.
fast food could do. We're gonna see that with the generations coming up that started off when they're 5 years old eating that
Exactly.
into like they're 80 years old. Then we'll really see those effects later on.
Mm-hmm.
So how should an average consumer shop, and then what are the effects that maybe you can foresee from eating fast food almost every day?
I think after you answer this, they're not gonna welcome us at any bodega.
We can't have this guy coming in. He's getting fired. Get out of here. I love this question. Because it's like one of my more favorite things to kind of study. So for the average shopper, right, you want to stick to the outside aisles. And the reason for that is because you go inside, like, let's take ShopRite for example, right? You go in there, on the right hand side, produce section. Go further towards the back, like the back of the store or whatever, right? The freezer section. Towards the left hand side, the refrigerated section. The reason why those sections are good, those should be kind of prioritized when you're shopping, is because that's where like the natural foods are, right? If it needs to be refrigerated, that means
Is that to preserve?
you have yes. The inside aisles, right? They're processed, so they have a whole bunch of additives inside of it to keep them alive, right? They have like a very long shelf life, right? The things on the outsides, they have a much shorter shelf life because they're natural, right? Everything has bacteria, microbes inside of it, right? So you need to preserve them, and 9 times out of 10, you need to, adjust things like the lighting, adjust the temperature, adjust like, the container that's inside of or whatever, right? To keep it fresh, right? That's literally what you want to go and aim for. So when you're shopping, stick to the outside aisles. That's where you're going to find your natural foods, right? The reason why milk is over there, it's refrigerated. This shelf life is maybe like 2 weeks, right? Because it's natural, from like a natural source, right? Or like, apples or like bananas. Those things are natural. So the things that are inside of them come from the earth. Those are naturally earth-grown nutrients that you're going to want inside your body. They're not processed, right? Things in the freezer, same exact thing, right? Preservation methods, all kinds of different preservation methods. It's inside the freezer, right? That cold air, stopping those microbes inside from getting bad, right? It's stopping those from like growing or proliferating and then making that food like go bad, like rancid or start to get off odor, deteriorative condition, right? If you have like a food product, right, and it can just sit on like the table, 2 weeks go by, it's fine. It's got preservatives inside, right? If there's no change in color, that means that it's not like, getting old age. Like there's something inside of it keeping its life and like its integrity intact, right? We probably don't know what that is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's another thing that you also have to look at it. Fruits.
I'm gonna test my tomatoes
Stuff
back at
like
home.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's different indicators for that too. You can look at things like the way that they, how they inject hormones
Yes.
inside of like fruits and vegetables and things like that to like, give it like a different color, make it more
Healthy.
appealing.
Yeah.
Call it healthy.
Healthy.
Like, hey, it has more nutrition, more added.
Organic versus inorganic.
Yeah.
Add the beauty to it.
Yeah, it's like it's nice. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, like that stuff. A lot of that stuff is bogus.
It's
A lot of that stuff is bogus, and they don't teach that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I really know you just changed up my shopping habit at ShopRite now.
Stay away from the dark side, dude.
On the dark side. Don't. He's there,
I
guys.
see you in those houses, bro. We throwing rocks at you.
We were in that aisle. So I throwing like rotten cookies. I throw rotten tomatoes. I was like, what are you
Papa
doing?
rocks and we taking picture of you grabbing like caught you, bro.
Getting the donuts from it. Oh no!
How dare you, Kevin?
Plenty. How dare you? But all that stuff, all that stuff is really important. The same thing with the drinks. Like electrolyte drinks. They claim like has electrolytes inside of it, right? But do you yourself know how much potassium you need? Do you know how much sodium you need? Do you know how much? It can be hard for most people. I normally go with, how's your body feel? How's your body feel, right? I can tell right now that I'm dehydrated, but I can feel here, right? Your body will tell you everything, right? If you're,
Dry skin.
like ashy, right? Like, your body will literally tell you you're hungry. It means you need to eat food.
Mm-hmm.
Or you feel hungry, it means you need to drink water. Your body, there's so many different things. Your body, has hormones inside of it, right? Your body has hormones. It tells you when you need to eat something. It gives you indicators. If you listen to your body, this is probably like my biggest takeaway when it comes to things like food, right? Listen to your body. It will literally tell you what you need. But you need to have you need to be more in tune with your body, because you might think it needs one thing, but it actually needs something else. Like I had mentioned with water and food, there's a hormone that's responsible for it. It's called ghrelin. It regulates, your hunger pains, right? When you're hungry, you've gone like a long time without eating food, it'll start to grumble, to keep grumbling, right? You need to eat some food. Sometimes you eat something, and you might feel a little hungry after, and you're like, wait, I just ate. Hydrate. Drink some water. Wait about like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If it goes away, then you weren't hungry. You're just dehydrated. Different indicators.
You open a box of Pandora because, man, supplements. Vitamins. All right, these gigantic jars that everyone believes they're the most healthy thing in the world. I watch a documentary because I love PBS documentaries. I think they're so well put together. And they were talking about how people abuse vitamins. They abuse all these minerals, right? Because the body doesn't need that much, and a lot of these vitamins can be taken natural, right? What are your thoughts about this industry that markets these different vitamins and minerals to be like people need to take that much of it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I think it's almost like substance abuse.
So I'll say, you're actually right. So I'll say this: there's a term that we learned in class. It's called expensive urine, and this is kind of for the people that think they need to take a whole bunch of protein, right? If you're like, hey, I want to build muscle, this is like one of my most favorite topics. Everybody's always like, oh, I need to be like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I need to eat like, I'm 155 pounds, and I need to take like 300 grams of protein. I need to take like, 200, 250 and all that good stuff, right? That's what I need to do to really like gain weight. That's wrong. The supplement industry is an industry in and of itself. The same way with medications, right? Those kind of things are going to be promoted because they're going to make a profit. They're going to make money from that. But in the actuality, when it comes to things like vitamins, minerals, you can get all that stuff from earth-grown nutrients. The difference is that people that might need a little bit more because of like a health condition, right? Then you would just need to add a supplement, because a supplement is just helping your diet. Supplements the diet. That's where that term comes from. Your already diet should look like, 2,000 calories, 2,500 calories. Everybody's different, right? You're getting X amount of protein, X amount of carbohydrates, X amount of fats. If those are coming from earth-grown nutrients, whole, natural sources, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be getting all those extra vitamins and minerals inside of your diet. But if you aren't eating good,
or like clean food, or like have like a healthy diet that come from those sources that would have those nutrients inside of it, right? Another term we use for natural sources is nutrient dense foods, right? Because anything that comes from the earth that has the nutrition inside of it, right? That's why they can make supplements, because they extract the vitamins out of like the natural sources, and then they put it in tablet form, and then now you're, you know, consuming something. And you're thinking, okay, this is going to make me, you know, super strong, extra, or whatever. At the smallest level, vitamins and minerals, they're what are called cofactors. Cofactors just help with metabolic function. For example, if you don't have like enough of like vitamin B12, it can affect you cognitively, right? Or if you don't have enough like, you know, vitamin K, it can affect with like your blood clots. Physiologically speaking, you'll probably be fine, but over time, if you're deficient in something, like African Americans tend to be deficient in vitamin D, and that's because of, you know, our skin tone, like with melanin, right? The way that it metabolizes the sunlight that we get to convert like that sunlight into natural vitamin D inside of our skin, it's not as efficient. So sometimes, actually a lot of the times, African Americans need to take supplements for that.
Because of the reflection of the light itself.
Exactly, yeah. And then once it touches the skin, like we don't convert that vitamin D. There's like a vitamin D3, D2, D1, there's like different ones. We don't convert it to what our body needs. So that's why African Americans need to take vitamin D supplements.
Oh, wow. So they do require that supplement. Just like if somebody's anemic, you need the supplement. Of
So you need like iron, right? Or you would maybe need like folate.
But not to like say, oh, I saw, because this is what happens a lot in I could say the Latin community. I think there's a huge, look, everyone is free to do whatever they want. I'm not hating on anyone. It's your business. But I do believe there is a responsibility when when somebody's talking about something without thinking about the effects it can have on a lot of people. And if you're not an expert in that area, just, you know, maybe specify that works for you, right? But for example, the Latin community, they watch all these reels about take vitamin D1 and then magnesium and calcium, and they buy jars. They take it religiously, like every single day, right? And when I watch this documentary, we're talking about experts that are doing experiment. They've done a prolonged experiment for investigation of 10 years to see the effect. They talk like what you're saying. It's like there's no need because you get it from natural resources.
Exactly.
It's like, I wonder what is the study about the effects of, you know, overdosing on these, if there's any such thing as overdose of vitamins, and what are the effects? Because I do feel there's an irresponsibility of these people that are marketing to sell, and it's their business, right? But there's no consequences of, thank you, Kev. There's no consequences. They're not measuring the consequences of what they're putting people into their health.
Yeah, and that's a good one. That's a good point right there too. So I'll go and answer that part where you were saying about like the consequences of like, you know, taking like, you know, too much magnesium, right? So like in something that we have learned with like nutrition and fitness, there is an upper limit to the amount of a supplement that you can consume, where it's not necessarily like needed for your body, but you can take that much and you will not run into like poisonous effects.
Okay.
So like that's why they use that term, like, you know, expensive urine for like, you know, protein, right? If you're, you know, somebody that's maybe 120 pounds, you have no business taking in like 200 grams of protein, right? You only really need about 0.8 to about a gram per kilogram of body weight for your protein, right? And then you can adjust that by like 1.1 to like 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, and that's how you kind of adjust it to, you know, increase like, you know, your protein, like, you know, your gains and everything. Anything more than that, it just gets urinated out. If you guys have ever like, you know, this is why I say listen to your body. The body will tell you everything, right? When you guys, you know, use the bathroom, right? You take a look and see what color the piss, you know what I mean? Like, you know, take a look to see what color the urine is. This is how you can talk to your body. This is what your body is communicating to you. Because what you put inside of it, your body is going to break it down, metabolize it. And then you take a look and you see how it looks like it's getting excreted, right? People use the bathroom, they have blood in their stool, right? That's an indicator there's something wrong inside, right? Internally, right? You use the bathroom, if you have urine that's like a clear color, right? You're hydrated, right? Has like a yellowish tint, you're still hydrated. Super dark yellow, you're not hydrated, right? You're not hydrated, right? That means you don't have enough water inside for your kidneys to really kind of filter it out of like the blood. And then it's coming out really like dark and has like a really like taint kind of smell. And yeah. Orange color, that's a lot of protein, right? A greenish color, like a hard green color, that's a lot of vitamins, minerals inside of it, right? So like things like that, you can literally look at like, you know, when you're using the bathroom, you can see that indicator. You know, you pass stool, right, defecate, you can see that indicator, right? If it's like hard and like, you know, really hard and like it hurts when it's coming out, you know what I mean? It could be, you know, an issue with like hydration or like fiber, you know? So like there's different kinds of indicators, right? If it's coming out really watery, you might need like a stool bulkener kind of a thing, right? Some people have different conditions internally, but you know.
It becomes like a literal reflection of your input and output.
It is literally, no, that's exactly right. That's literally exactly it. So I mean, there's a lot of different things. But did I answer your question?
Yeah,
like with the
definitely,
like, you know.
definitely. Like I said, every time I see this, it's like I'm like, that's like me. I don't know, me talking about brain surgery when I'm not a brain surgeon, but I'm suggesting, I don't know, procedures to be done. I do think there needs to be like a responsibility of talking about the effects, right? What is like real science about it versus like I'm just selling this and I just want to sell it because I just want to make money off of it. And a lot of people buy into it because one, people are not curious enough to investigate on their own realm to understand if that's really needed, and they take the word of these individuals that are not experts in the field. They're just business people doing it, right? Yeah. And second, I don't blame the people putting out the information as much. I would blame the listener, because the listener, you as the listener, should investigate more. Is this real, what it is? And then if it's not, call it out. Because there is a responsibility, because somebody, I believe, was trying to, sell you something that wasn't what they were saying that's going to be beneficial. And trust me, like it drives me nuts. I'm like, how much magnesium do you really need in your body? Like,
Well, when they market it as something that's healthy, like the electrolyte drink, and they try to market
this is the electrolyte solution. This is what you need to consume.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what electrolyte is. Hydration.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what that was my connection I made when I saw it. I was like, I know I need electrolyte.
And what's wrong with water?
Right? I mean, well, water is needed, but electrolytes hold on to the water. Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Electrolytes hold on to the water like sodium, potassium, magnesium, things like zinc. I do that. Actually, no, it's funny. I actually go to Starbucks and I will order water and I'll add salt inside of it.
Some people put lemon too.
I do the same thing with lemon.
Lemon and Himalayan salt.
Pink Himalayan sea salt.
Himalayan sea salt. Yeah,
that's literally my electrolyte recovery.
I just started
drink.
to do that.
Did you start doing that? Oh,
but
man.
It feels different.
It does. It does. Well, because you're actually getting minerals. You're actually getting the things that hold on to the water. That's what keeps you hydrated. Hydration isn't just drink water. Hydration is electrolytes that hold on to the water inside of your muscles. Because if you drink a lot of water, you'll get dehydrated.
Because it flushes out, right? Exactly. There's nothing holding the.
That's what fighters do, you know, when they're cutting weight.
Yep.
What were you gonna say, Kev?
I get that sometimes where I just get like I will drink a lot of water. It's retaining the water in my body sometimes that makes it a little bit hard. And it's like and I used to have like conversations with my doctor about it, and we will talk about it, but I guess like the doctor will go surface level. They sometimes they go deeper into it, and he's like, okay, then just drink little spurts of water throughout the day, and I'm like, that really can't be my answer. If I'm gonna say hydrate, like with the military, they force hydrate, right? You know, in the beginning, sometimes I like just downing a bottle of water just to make sure I got water in me or something like that. So that happens sometimes. I would love to resurface back to the sellable side, right? Like, for example, you're in a great position as well in the military then to be a nutritionist as well, because you could transfer that into the civilian world as a freelance service
Exactly.
to people, and you could provide that education as a freelancer to people that are looking for a healthier lifestyle. So that's great service for that.
I appreciate you.
Let's go.
Appreciate you so much. Yeah.
You're right, because that's awesome.
I already kind of do that on social media, actually.
Oh,
And I don't have a lot of followers, but I have about like 1,500.
Nice.
And one of the things that I like to do is I like to promote, I'll eat right because I have to, lead by example. Right? I always present lead by example. In the military, Taekwondo, any realm of life, college and everything, right, is the stuff that I study. So I always practice what I preach, right? And I'll put out there, like, nutrition. I'll just put that on, like, like a little, like, Instagram post, This is what you should consume. And every now and again, I have friends, they're like, hey, like, my doctor, it's funny you mentioned the doctor. He was like, hey, my doctor said that, I need to consume this much protein. He was like, actually, he was responding to something that I put out there. He was like, no, that's not right. My doctor told me this. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, doctors and dietitians butt heads. Always butt heads because they're going to promote a quick fix, right? If you're in pain, your doctor's going to tell you take this anti-inflammatory, right? You're going to do that. If you have another condition, he's going to say take this medication, take this medication, take this medication. All those are really quick fix options. Inorganic, synthetic, man-made chemicals. Dietitian's going to give you a natural source because where you think that synthetic stuff came from.
And you guys will give us a plan too.
And give you guys a plan, exactly. Evaluate you. So we're going to treat you based off of your body condition and what you look like, and it's going to be totally personal to you. That's the kind of thing like dietitians.
It kind of reminds me of like the doctors are the bosses of your body versus the cultural services, like nutritionists are the leaders of your body.
Really, exactly. We're kind of like the SMEs, like for the body when it comes to it. So like when people are like, hey man, like my doctor told me this, and I'm just like, I'm listening to it, and I'm like, so they're giving you that doctor answer. It's not really a holistic response. I'm not gonna be thinking holistic. They're gonna be thinking,
And you gotta understand also like who they get sponsored by. The pharmaceutical industry, right? Because I'm pretty sure they got sponsored by, like for example, farmers. Where do you think they're gonna be sending you, right? So obviously they get sponsored by these big pharma companies, and their first choice is like, oh, here's this medicine, take it. Why? Because the way it works is they literally, pay them for that.
exactly.
They get paid for these things, man.
Profit for that. They're marketing their company, their businesses. And like there's a whole bunch of doctors are always like, this is what you need to take.
So Malik, where they can find your expertise besides your social media if they want to, come to you and they want to have a better structure in their diet.
One-on-one
Going to see like a one-on-one service. Social media. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I have like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn.
What's your handle?
My handle. All right, so Facebook is Malik Dobson. For Instagram, it's MD_TKD_. For my LinkedIn account, I have to look at it, but it's like Malik Dobson something. I have to look back at it.
And don't worry, guys, we're gonna have Malik back.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna be a regular in our show here in our podcast, and trust me, like there's so much more information that like we have to talk about, and maybe some BS topics too.
Let's talk about the aliens.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Think about this, right? Think about this. You hired Malik as your nutritionist, and he's a double black belt, right?
Second degree, yeah.
Think about the repercussions if you don't follow that. No, I'm just
Remember
that double kick is coming.
I've been working on it for years.
I waited this moment for this.
This is my time.
It's like,
I've been Drago. It's like I've been Drago for Rocky.
man, you're gonna have severe PTSD after coming out of your office.
Oh my goodness. No shame.
But
Maybe have one of those electrolyte drinks.
What are you doing in that aisle? He told you to be in aisle 6.
aisle police.
Oh man.
God. My takeaway, as a matter of fact, in my head, it was very good about the electrolytes. I love how you explained that. But in my head, I was like, I always think I think about stupid things sometimes. And the first thing I was thinking was Ashley Larry. That guy must be the most dehydrated person in the world. Ashley Larry, man.
Like, yeah, nah, he needs something.
Yeah, he needs like all the electrolytes in the world.
He just somebody like him would benefit from a supplement. That I can tell you that for sure. He would probably need like a supplement. Yeah.
Well, guys, that concludes today's podcast, The Ethics Guild. Check us out. We had Malik today. I told you this was gonna kick ass, kick major ass, and also it's a nutrient for your brain. So educate yourself with the knowledge that Malik has given us today, and Kevin, always great. We did miss the big A on, but she'll be back hopefully and our show. Let's go. All right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, man.